greetings from John Curtis Lower School, where we're very happy to be here considering what the weather has been like in Metro New Orleans today. And we have a turf field to work with and the ability to have a very important softball game in district play, 9-5A, where a title will be decided today between Mount Carmel and John Curtis. Mount Carmel red hot on the year. They've won 9 straight and come in with a record of 11-2 overall, 5-0 in district. And one of those victories coming against John Curtis just 10 days ago over at the JPRD softball complex by a score of 6-4. But Curtis is 4-1 in district play, 12-5 overall. And they just were able to edge Chappelle a couple of days ago to set up this matchup where the Patriots can earn a share of the league title. But they have to get by a Mount Carmel team that is awfully good and has an excellent pitcher on the center circle for this one today. As I'm Jude Young, joined by Kati Morse, former Southeastern Lions pitcher and somebody who knows this game and these teams awfully well. And Kati, in this matchup, you've got the experience of Mount Carmel against a very young John Curtis team playing on their home field. And I do mean young, but also very talented.
Yes, and I had the privilege of going to the practices of both of these teams this week, just preparing for this game. And they're juxtaposed with each other in so many different ways, but one of the main differences that you can see is we've got a very young John Curtis team, quite literally a freshman pitcher going against a very experienced Mount Carmel who's got probably one of the best pitchers in the state going to be in the circle here this afternoon. So, you know, you've got a very young roster coming up in the red, white, and blue, and then you've got this team over here for Mount Carmel who has been there, done that, and, you know, the majority of their starters are upperclassmen. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see these teams play each other for the second time today.
The MCA Cubs led by 4 seniors, and you mentioned Shelby Wickersham, the pitcher, just a junior, so they'll be enjoying her services for another season after this one. Remy Hebert is the freshman who will start for John Curtis in the circle. And when you talk about these two pitchers, there's severe differences here. One who's really still learning how to pitch, just a freshman, and obviously with MCA, Wickersham awfully experienced.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Remy Hebert pitch, just because I had a conversation with Coach Godfrey when I was here on Monday and asked him, you know, what's her best pitch, what's her strengths? And usually coaches right away know the answer to that. And he said, you know, her best pitch isn't really a pitch, it's her attitude. And so I'm really excited to see this kid pitch, because he said she has a confidence and almost a maturity that he's never seen in a freshman, and especially in someone who's this young, who has to come and face a team that's this experienced. That's something I'm very excited to see, because you don't even see that in a lot of college pitchers, is to have that sort of composure. And he said he's seen her keep them in games all season long. So I'm excited to watch this kid throw.
On the flip side, we had the 2 head coaches meeting with the umpires at home plate, and the flip side being that the experience goes to John Curtis and Jerry Godfrey, who's won state championships and been an integral part of this program for many years, versus a first-year head coach in Katie Bailey, who's got this team coming along from Mount Carmel awfully well. I don't think that plays a factor as much here as into the postseason, considering how much confidence Mount Carmel's playing with. But they do have some warts that they're continuing to work on. Sometimes errors in the field can snowball, and even though they're an experienced team, it's about dealing with the emotions of overcoming mistakes that the Cubs are still working on.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Katie Bailey, who I was actually very good friends with in college. We played against each other in high school and became really good friends in college at Southeastern, so I was excited to come watch her team play. But she said that going into with this team in her first season, she knew that fundamentally and on a skill level, these girls were going to be very experienced. She knew she wasn't going to have to teach them a lot as far as the skills of softball were concerned, but she said where they lacked was their communication skills, their ability to bounce back from mistakes, and their ability to communicate with one another. And so she said that's been the main focus of her coaching experience this whole season, is to see how to communicate with these kids and get them to play better mentally rather than physically.
And Coach Bailey coming in with a bit of a social work background and what her studies are away from her work at Mount Carmel. And that's coming into play here to try to get this team mentally prepared for what will be a very short tournament in Division I, because we have this split now affecting softball. There are only 8 teams, and they're all going to go to Sulphur to compete. Right now, Mount Carmel is the number 2 seed if the season ended today, and Curtis is 3, so potentially they could meet in the state semifinals. We're about ready to get underway here at John Curtis's lower school. Great to have this turf field. It's been basically a year and a week since they debuted here with the artificial stuff, and it pays off on days like this.
If I would have had a turf field in high school, I don't think I would have ever left high school softball. I came out to their practice one day, and I looked at them and I said, do you guys know how lucky you are? I played on a turf field, I think, one time in my college experience, and I went to a D1 school and played at some of the best fields in the country. And, just having this at their disposal, not only for game day, but, that's some practices that don't get canceled. You can come out here at any time of day, and the field is in perfect condition. So, they've got a really nice setup here. I wish I had this when I was in high school.
And these players are certainly benefiting from having it today as they face off for the district championship. If Mount Carmel wins, it's all theirs. If Curtis wins, they will share the league title as Hebert toes the rubber, and we're ready for the first pitch of this ball game, and it is a swinging bunt by Latoul. Easy play flip from Dean to Piku, second to first, and just like that, one out, and just what John Curtis needs to be able to get themselves through this early part of the game where Mount Carmel tends to strike early at the plate.
Yeah, you're exactly right. One thing that I've seen in the main differences of these two teams is Mount Carmel seems to get hot right away. They come out swinging, pardon the expression. They come out swinging very early and then kind of fall asleep towards the end of the game, whereas John Curtis, doesn't really wake up until the middle of the game towards the end. So, I'm very interested to see these two dynamics
Macy
today.
Hornowski in the box, and it's a line drive, and talk about being ready over at the hot quarter. Sandris able to grab that one quickly for the second out, and you have to be alert. That's why they call it the hot corner. Raven Sandris, such a young team. She's just a sophomore, and they've got 3 juniors in the starting lineup. That is the experience, if you will, for Curtis today, as they have young talent that's trying to accomplish something really significant today as that rise ball goes way up to our 3-hole hitter, Jordan Perkins. Perkins, who is the second pitcher on this team in shortstop, one of the talented middle-of-the-order hitters for the Cubs.
Yeah, Jordan actually verbally committed to LSU earlier this year along with Shelby Wickersham. So that would be pretty interesting to see both of these girls go on to play college ball together. But Jordan, has other things going on today, as I shared with you earlier. I think this is hilarious, so I have to share it. But you might see, if you look into the dugout, someone carrying a little bundle, and that's Jordan's robot baby, and it's for her child development class.
Line drive as we cut off the story because the quick singing Cubs go down 1-2-3. Goodman in center with the grab, and just like that we go to the bottom of the first, and we'll keep it right here as we continue that because it's a great story. You say you didn't have turf fields when you played. I don't know about robo babies either, Katie.
Yeah, and when I saw this little bundle out at their practice, and I said, what is that? And she said, it's for my child development class. I can't turn it off. She essentially has to have someone babysit for her while she's playing. So, you're going to see someone holding this little bundle with a baby's face taped onto it. So I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, that's first world problems with this modern technology, but that was just a funny story, and she's just a hilarious kid. That was just one of the ways I got to know her. I would really like to see her do well today and in the future.
You mentioned Wickersham, who's warming up now, a pitcher that is headed to LSU. That says everything you know about her talent, but give us a little bit more of an insight as to what makes her successful on the rubber.
Had a chance to chat with her coach, Katie Bailey, yesterday, and she said that her strength is that she wants to get better constantly. She's always practicing. She's always doing something to better herself. She has a great drop ball, a great curveball, a lot of off-speed pitches, but probably her biggest strength is just her pure power. She just has the ability, if stuff's not working, to just blow it past people, which never hurts, especially in high school softball. So I'm excited to see her pitch today. She's very mature. She has a presence up on the mound, and you can tell she's had a lot of games under her belt. So I'm excited to see her command the circle today.
Well, she hasn't given up an earned run in 30 innings now,
It's
even though
impressive.
4 runs allowed against Curtis were unearned in the 6-4 victory 10 days ago. And she was in a rocking chair pretty much for the first half of that ball game. So if you're Curtis, you're trying to deal with that, and it will start with the first batter of the game for the Patriots, and it is Neal Bree Neal, the shortstop, from the left side and takes one outside.
And this is already two differences that we see in these two teams. Mount Carmel came out very early. Two batters swung at the first pitches they were thrown, and you see John Curtis seems to be sitting back a little bit, waiting to see what Shelby's going to throw them. So I'm interested to see how they react to all this off-speed, all these curves that she has.
Two straight missing outside, 2-0 the count. And it's interesting because you'd think the philosophies would be reversed with the young freshman on the mound. You want her to throw pitches and prove she can find the strike zone, and you know Wickersham has command and control out there to be able to do that. So we'll see how that works out. You can never quite guess based on just some of the normal tendencies of youth versus experience how a game's going to go, as that's a fastball strike on the outside corner. You play the game, and coaches have different philosophies, and you've seen that throughout your career.
Oh, of course. Especially being a pitcher, depending on who you're playing for, it depends on how you're going to throw to certain batters. It even depends on who you're playing, maybe the weather. It all just depends on the day. And it seems like she finally hit that corner she was trying to hit for several pitches, trying to get these players to chase. So be interested to see how these batters kind of adjust. They seem to have changed their philosophy since the last time they played them, taking their time, looking to see all the different pitches she's gonna throw and make her work for those strikes.
2-2 pitch to the plate, and she chases one, does Neal, swing and a miss for the first strikeout of this game. That one low and outside, and Neal taking the running start up there. Couldn't stop the bat.
No, and that's just for those left-handed hitters. That was a beautiful pitch. That's almost the strategy with most left-handed hitters that you go up against every single time. You don't want to throw them anything near their hands because that's their advantage. Their hands are the closest to their eyes. You want to keep things away from their eyes, away from their hands, because that's where all their control comes from. You usually want to keep left-handed batters off of the plate and get them to try to foul tip or get a bad roll off of the bat. So these outside pitches, she's got a really good command of this side of the plate.
Sierra Sacco, another left-handed batter, the right fielder, just an eighth grader, stepping in and in the two-hole for Curtis. They've won multiple state championships as we see a strike called to even the count. It's amazing that they have such a young lineup, but sometimes that's just the way it rotates through the school. And we know Curtis, enrollment-wise, would be a 2A school, and they're playing all the way up to the top in the Division I/5A side of things. So they're getting caught in a little bit of a numbers game, but learning on the fly as Wickersham brings the 1-1, and it's bunted down the line and well, and that will be the first hit of the game as it goes off the glove of Savarese at third. A tough play to make. She needed to field that cleanly to have any chance with the runner coming out of the left box.
And I'm so impressed that you mentioned that she was just in 8th grade. I mean, that's such an age difference, especially when you look at she's playing against potentially 17, 18-year-olds. And so, just the maturity level there is amazing. And, I mean, I don't think I could have, played as an 8th grader, 13, 14-year-old kid going up against someone almost 5 years older than me. So that's really impressive that Curtis has a team filled with these kids.
Cam Goodman is just a sophomore as she steps into the box, but she is somebody who has immense talent, and she says she's already, as a sophomore, committed to Southeastern.
Whoop,
so that
whoop.
tells you about her talent. I know you're a big fan of that. So many great softball programs on the college level in this state as that's fouled off the end of the bat. Goodman clearly has good speed playing in center field, and somebody who really needs to produce in this lineup because she's got experience compared to most of her teammates.
Oh, yeah. She was fun to watch at practice the other day. In my opinion, she was definitely the most vocal player out there on the field. She seemed kind of the natural leader of this team, even though she's a sophomore.
Right back to the rubber, fielded well by Wickersham. The relay throw from second after the first out is low, but the fourth is the second out of the inning here, and a good job by Wickersham being ready to field her position, and she made the perfect throw to second for the lead out.
Coach Katie Bailey and I actually had a conversation about exactly just that, saying that they've worked specifically with Shelby on her fielding this whole season. She said when she first came as the first-year coach that Shelby didn't go out to take ground balls at the first practice.
Wow.
And when Katie asked her why, she said, well, I'm not a fielder, I'm a pitcher. And Coach Bailey laughed at that. She said, no, if you're on the field, you're a fielder. So you have to work on your ground balls just as much. And she says every time a ball gets hit back to Shelby and she makes a play, she kind of looks her way and says, that's why we field. And so it looks like that practice is paying off, getting her reflexes where they need to be.
First of 3 straight juniors in the order. having a chance to bat with a runner on and 2 outs is Alyssa Dean, as that pitch is misses up and away to make it 2-0 here with 2 outs. Goodman over at first base, and Curtis will run quite a bit to try to force the issue, and Goodman has really good speed over there, so the Cubs will be keeping an eye on that.
And Curtis will also lay down the bunt at any time. A lot of these kids all the way through the lineup can put the ball on the ground, and especially like you mentioned with Goodman at first base, I would use that to my advantage.
3-0 the count is that last pitch, very close but just a bit high, so perhaps a chance for the cleanup hitter Dean to look for something to hit here as Wickersham brings it to the plate. And taking all the way, it looked like, for a strike to make it 3-1 is Dean.
It's a nice job by Shelby. After you've thrown a few balls in a row, she kind of looked like she was all over the place there for a couple pitches, but it's always nice when you can just rear back and just pump a strike in there and get back on track.
Dean very composed looking out there. She checks her wrist. I guess part of the signal's working off of the wrist there, as it is a ground ball towards second behind the bag. Only play is to first, and it is low from Harnoski to Ciascio, chasing it by the fence and getting far enough to allow the runner to reach second base. That's Dean. Goodman stops over at third, and just like that, Curtis in the first inning with a chance here with 2 outs to perhaps take an early lead.
And I wonder if the second baseman maybe could have just tossed it to second. Her weight was already going towards second base. Maybe she saw the runner already there, so she made the decision to throw to first base, and she was kind of off balance when she made that throw there. And, they paid for it there. Maybe she should have just tossed it to second there.
Cubs looking a little shaky again here in this one in the first, like they were late in the game. The last matchup against Curtis, as it's a first pitch strike to Piku. And Piku, who is another junior, as mentioned, playing first base in this ball game, a chance to give her team an early lead and put some pressure on Mount Carmel. Curtis certainly hoping not to have to play from behind here against a pitcher that should settle in like Wickersham. That one up and holding back on the swing is Piku to even the count 1-1.
And these are moments where you can really see what your kids are made of. This is a big moment here in this game. You got 2 runners on. It's early in the game. Curtis has a chance here to get on the board early and really strike and make a statement here super early against a pitcher that, as you said, has done well all season. And
on the hands, foul back, 1-2 the count, and for once in this bottom of the first, Wickersham with a chance to pitch ahead in the count.
And normally, as we've seen before, John Curtis takes a little bit to get warmed up. They don't really start hitting until the 3rd, 4th inning. And so this is a chance for their players to really show what they can do late in the season. And it's a good time to get warm as playoffs are just ahead.
The 1-2 misses outside. 2-2 the count. First time we've seen the sunshine all day moments ago, opening up here at John Curtis Lower School in this beautiful artificial turf field, allowing us to play this important District 9-5A game today. The title on the line as Wickersham tries to pitch her team to an undefeated mark in district, and a swing and a miss chasing upstairs. A huge strikeout, number 2, to retire the side, and Strand 2 in scoring position. Wickersham got the big pitch she needed there.
That's a huge out for Shelby Wickersham. They were in very hot water there just now. Like I mentioned earlier, that was a chance for Curtis to jump on the board and make a statement. And that's where you see Shelby Wickersham's experience and her maturity in the circle. She didn't panic, and she threw the pitches she knew she was good at. Very good job.
And the importance of not giving a hitter a pitch to hit when you're ahead in the count. See if they'll chase. She changed the eye angle after going outside and a bit low. And then softball, the importance of being able to have a pitch that rises, to be able to have that strikeout pitch in your back pocket, is very important.
And that rise ball, that's just one of those pitches. The philosophy in softball is there's no way to hit a rise ball. A rise ball is not meant to be hit.
Right.
And that's the pitch you throw to strike someone out. And that's just a very smart strategy for her to get these batters to chase, and then throw it upstairs and see if they'll swing.
Now you understand as a pitcher how to get the release point to have the ball do what you want it to do. If you're in the box trying to hit, how do you recognize out of the hand what's coming to be able to avoid the pratfalls of, hey, it's a very short distance between that rubber and the plate, and when you see that ball coming, you can't necessarily stop when it looks that big and fat in your eyes and it winds up being eye high.
Usually if you can recognize a rise ball, what you'll usually see, and there's different spins, there's different strokes for different folks with every pitch, but usually on a rise ball, you'll see the pitcher's weight get thrown back because you want your weight underneath the ball, which makes it rise, and you'll see that hand go way past that hip point, almost to their knees, to get underneath the ball and spin it upwards. And then after the release, you'll see their hands usually go way up towards their face. Now, like you said, there's not a lot of time to process that information when you're standing there with a bat in your hand. But that's usually why we see catchers most of the time are usually some of the best hitters on the team, is because they know what to look for. They catch pitchers every day. They see those little tendencies. And so usually that's why you see catchers are the best hitters on the team 9 times
Shelby
out of 10.
Wickersham got jammed, and that shot over the mound is fielded by the shortstop, Neal, for out number 1 here in the top of the second. And that's 4 straight outs recorded to start the game by the freshman Remy Hebert in the circle. And getting by Wickersham, awfully huge considering how good she is at the plate as well. 3 runs driven in with 2 hits, including a double in the first matchup last week, as a first pitch is low and inside to Alonzo, the center fielder, as Hebert looks really comfortable playing on her home field and seems to be in a groove here early on.
Honestly, if people wouldn't have told me that she was a freshman, I wouldn't have known just looking at her. You know, she does have a confidence, and, you know, she has certain moments where if she misses, just like that pitch she threw just now, she kind of had a look in her face where she looked towards her coach for some guidance. But, you know, I'm excited to see what this kid can do in the next 2 to 3 years, because that's not something you see in most upperclassmen. Is that maturity.
She has a legacy here at Curtis that we'll talk about, and in softball in particular, that explains some of that confidence for such a young player. But she is behind here to Alonzo, 3-0, in danger of giving up her first base runner. And swinging at the 3-0 pitch, put in play. Alonzo able to reach as Sanders was able to make the stumbling diving play, but no chance to get up and make the throw. And it is the first hit of the game for the Cubs with 1 out here in the second.
That's another defensive moment where you kind of have to make a split-second decision. Maybe the third baseman should have let the shortstop take that ball. It was an excellent catch, excellent play, but, you know, she took that play away from the shortstop, who was already going towards first base where they needed to throw it. So that's just one of those blessings and curses of softball, is it's moments of split-second decisions that make or break this game. So we'll see if that mistake gets to them in this inning.
And Hebert flashing a big smile after that first pitch and the fake throw behind the plate by Langford. Tori Langford, just a sophomore, as that pitch stays up, and snap throw by Langford, and back quickly was Alonzo. You know, this team's so young that the pressure of the game, and if mistakes happen in a game, it doesn't seem to bother them very much because they're too young to know any better.
Exactly, and that's actually something that Coach Godfrey mentioned to me at practice earlier.
Only play over for Sanders is to first, with the good jump there by Alonzo to get herself in scoring position on the ground out by Ortiz here with 2 outs. But the Cubs with the first opportunity to perhaps drive in a run with a hit, as Ciascio will momentarily step in. But as you were saying, Katie.
Yeah, that's one thing that Coach Godfrey mentioned to me earlier, is he said he's never had a team with very little upperclassmen, no seniors, and he says seniors tend to have, you know, their focus elsewhere. They know who people are. They know the importance of certain games. They know that this is a big district game. But sometimes when the kids are younger, they don't really understand, or, you know, they just want to have fun. Some of them are just still enjoying the game, and, you know, maybe that's a good thing at this point. They don't let the pressure get to them, because at this point it's still just fun. It's just a game to some of them.
And Maddie Ciascio, another attacking, aggressive hitter here against Hebert. First pitch swinging for the ground out. To retire the side as we go to the bottom of the second, as we have softball here presented to you on SportsNOLA.com by First NBC Bank. Jude Young along with Katie Morse. And we haven't taken breaks yet because there's a lot to squeeze in what is a fast-pitch game, particularly as aggressive as the Cubs have been at the plate so far. And we're trying to give you as much as we can on the background on what would have been a television game if it wasn't for the issues with the weather. We would have liked to have brought that to you on WHNO, but happy to be here for such an important softball game. And it's a shame because our limitations with our package, brought to you by First NBC Bank, for the postseason, because we have, 12 different championships now in softball as well, just like in basketball. So many teams are advancing straight to Sulphur for the state tournament finals that we won't be able to bring you too many options locally. So we're happy we're able to get this game. But it is a shame. As much as you like to see kids have the opportunity to be crowned state champions, we've got great programs in the state. 5 are ranked in the top 25 nationally, released today by Max Preps. Mount Carmel's 36th, yes. So, I mean, great teams, especially in the top three classifications when you break them down into divisions, and you don't get as many of the postseason matchups as you'd like to see with the pressure on.
Right, and that makes me so happy just being a Louisiana native who played her college ball in the state of Louisiana. You know, back in the early days of softball in the 90s and 2000s, the powerhouses were in Texas, California. You know, a lot of West Coast schools were getting the hot players out of high school, and you know, and now it's kind of transformed to where Louisiana is a hotbed of softball talent, and you can see that. I mean, Mount Carmel has girls, 3 out of their 4 seniors have received scholarship offers to play college ball, and you don't see that a lot when 75% of your seniors are going to go on to play Division I college softball.
Exactly.
So that makes me very happy as a Louisiana native. You know, it's the talent's here, and we know it, and I'm not afraid to say it.
First pitch strike to Vadrine as we start the bottom of the second here in a scoreless game with the 9-5A championship on the line. Curtis playing for a share of it. Mount Carmel playing to have it all by themselves and head into tournament play for both of these teams. Another tournament each for them before the postseason as we have an 0-2 count here to Vadrine on the bunt that goes foul left side. Coming up this weekend, it'll be MCA at the All-Catholic Tournament, bringing schools from across Southeast Louisiana into play, and Curtis will go up to Parkview Baptist for a tournament. A very good program there at Parkview, in particular in Baton Rouge. So more challenges coming before the playoffs even arrive. 0-2 pitch up and away from Wickersham.
And that's something that Coach Bailey mentioned, is that with the new playoff system, there's also this 2-week gap in between the last district game and the playoffs, which is almost detrimental to some of these teams because sometimes a break is not a good thing when you're used to playing 2 to 3 games a week. So, you know, she said she's had some difficulty finding teams just to even play in a pickup game in the 2 weeks in between. So that's something that Mount Carmel's going to have to face, especially going into the practice strategy. Right
back to the center circle, and a great play there by Wickersham, fielding her position for the second time in this game, throwing into first with ease to retire Vadrine for the first out here in the bottom of inning number 2.
And that's something that seems like it's not really that big of a deal, a pitcher cleanly fielding a ball and making a nice throw to first base, but you'd be surprised how many times a ball's hit to a pitcher and she can't make the throw to first base, which seems like the easiest thing in the world. But sometimes when you're throwing underhanded over and over and over, sometimes your body almost forgets how to throw overhand to first base. And sometimes I would cheat. If I had a ball hit right back to me really fast, I'd shuffle step a few steps and then underhand flip it to my first baseman because I wasn't going to make a bad throw. And so stuff like that, you know, just fundamentals like that, it's very nice to see a pitcher have command of a circle in such a way where she's not surprised with a ball getting hit back to her and she can calmly and coolly make a throw to first base. You'd be surprised how many times that turns into a deadly mistake.
0-2 pitch and swing and a miss on a ball upstairs by Sandras. I believe it was actually not 0-2 as she's still in there, the first baseman here, and she is with 1 out. So I stand corrected. She'll have another opportunity. And you talk about that with a pitcher in softball. She has the advantage of not falling off to one side or the other like a baseball pitcher will, but other disadvantages, as you mentioned, with the throwing difference, as that one's fouled over the screen and the press box here at John Curtis Lower School. Count still 0-2 now officially to Sandras, as Curtis had something going in the first, a couple of runners on. Wickersham able to work her way through that one. And we're still scoreless as a result with 1 out here in the bottom of the second. That one takes an awkward spin off the turf on the first top, but no problem for Harnoski as she fielded it cleanly and threw over to first in time for out number 2. On the first bounce there, it looks like there's a seam there in the turf that directed it more up the middle than what it would have been. But Harnoski was not deterred and was able to make the play, and we've got 2 down quickly here in the bottom of the second.
And that's a really nice read for a kid that's not used to playing on a turf field all the time. As much as we love turf fields and the advantages that they offer with the weather and with practice times, sometimes a turf field is just a beast in itself because that ball can take some wicked spins and some wicked hops. But that's also one of the first few times I've seen Shelby throw her curveball in this game, and it's a pretty darn good one. And that's, you saw that weird spin that it took off that turf. That was a textbook curveball. That was a very nice pitch.
And of course, all turfs not created equal, so if you are playing on a few, and we have more and more of them in the greater New Orleans area. They're different from place to place, and you have to think a bit slick here as it's 2-0 to Tori Langford for John Curtis. The slickness, we see the field trained exceptionally well, but it still has to have a little bit of moisture that can affect how the ball will hit the turf as well.
And like you said, not all turf is created equal, and Mount Carmel did something to try to, prepare for this game. They practiced in an indoor facility yesterday at the Louisiana Baseball and Softball Association. So they did the best that they could to try to prepare, because if you go from practicing on a dirt field one day and then come here the next one, it's very different. Even when pitching, it's completely different. You'll notice that Shelby's not wearing regular cleats. She's wearing turf shoes, which that's two totally different experiences as well. So they had to prepare in each and every way for this field today.
3-1 the count to Langford here with 2 outs as Curtis tries to generate a base runner against Shelby Wickersham, the LSU commitment, just a junior and one of the best pitchers in the state on any level. As that ball misses inside, first free pass of the game given up by either hurler today. So with 2 outs, Langford goes over to first and gives the 9-hole hitter and pitcher, the freshman, Rennie Hebert, an opportunity to bat here. And Remy Hebert can help herself as much as perhaps some of the former Heberts who played in this program, including Tony, who's now at Northwestern State, and Danny Hebert, who played a little bit of softball, but other sports here. And, of course, their mother coached at 1.5 straight state championship teams with the Lady Patriots. Now she's the girls' athletic director after some success coaching at Riverside. So we talked about the maturity of Hebert as she steps in and tries to help herself. I mean, she's been around championship softball her whole life.
It helps to have a little bit of it in your blood. I mean, it helps to have that experience and grow up where that's just a part of your life. So maybe that is, a testament to that confidence and that maturity that we see, where she's just letting us know, hey, my age doesn't really matter, guys. This is just my whole life.
And these girls are playing at 2 great programs like Mount Carmel and John Curtis. They also play a lot of travel ball, and it's a year-round kind of thing. So it's not like they only have these limited number of opportunities to learn and grow and improve with the game, as Hebert bunted that one foul. And it looked like she might have been in foul territory, and it might have ricocheted off of her or a bat a second time there. I'm not sure, but no harm on the foul. But the count is 0-2 to the freshman Hebert.
And travel ball has changed so much, even since I've played, which now seems like a lifetime ago. But it wasn't that long ago, guys, so I'm not that old. But, and I played during the summers, but now it's a year-long commitment. It's a total family commitment. It's a huge financial commitment. And it's just one of those things where you can see just the level of skill that these players have. I mean, back 10, 15 years ago, kids of this age wouldn't have this technical skill that you see here, and it's because they play 24/7, 365.
Hebert, the third strikeout victim in 2 innings to retire the side for Shelby Wickersham, stranding one over at first. So through 2 innings, we're scoreless here at John Curtis, and we're seeing so far 2 pitchers that are pretty comfortable out there. And if you're Curtis, you're pretty happy about the way this game has started, because they look a bit more settled actually in the field than Mount Carmel. And seeing Hebert settle in early on has been a huge lift for the Lady Patriots in the hopes of trying to grab a share of the district title. What would that mean to such a young team here? I think you talk about a team that is playing a bit like we haven't been here before, and there's not a lot of pressure, and we're just going to do the best we can. But if you grab that title and say that you're champions, that's a big, big deal for all these players.
And I think that would kind of set the tone for the next 4 years. I mean, I know in my experience at Ponchatoula High School, my freshman year, we went to the playoffs for the first time in about 10 years. And that kind of set the tone for the next 3 years that I was there, because anything less than playoffs or state was, not good enough. And so if they can get a share of this district title and make a run in the playoffs, that's going to set the tone for this very young team for years to come. And I'd be really excited to see players like Hebert in the next 2 or 3 years.
Madison Savary's just a sophomore herself, stepping in to start the top of the third for the Cubs, and she takes a pitch low and away. And we saw moments ago before the at-bat some last-minute coaching coming from Kati Bailey, again in her first year with the program, and taking over a program that's used to winning and winning big. As we see a base hit up the middle, well struck on the pitch inside, pulling her hands in and reaching first base on the best hit ball of this game so far to give the Cubs a lead-off runner here in the third.
Oh, that was an excellent hit. And like you mentioned, you saw Coach Bailey kind of almost grab her helmet and say something. We're really sure what she said, but that's something Coach Bailey mentioned to me is like she was learning how to just communicate with these players. She said they have the skill, they have the knowledge, but she wanted to be able to communicate with them more effectively and get them to believe in themselves. And obviously someone believed in themselves there. That was an excellent hit. That's just the momentum that the Cubs needed.
Back to the bottom of the order for the last opportunity for Hebert to face a hitter for the first time here through the lineup, and it's Orgeron, the left fielder, who takes a pitch low to even the count at 1-1. It was interesting, Hebert on the first pitch, coming with the off-speed pitch, so showing her confidence, and now the count even at 1, so she's showing the ability here early to have faith in her whole repertoire, which will help her a lot against a very solid lineup from top to bottom.
And sometimes when you throw those off-speed pitches, especially when you're younger, sometimes those off-speed pitches kind of make you nervous. They kind of scare you a little bit, or at least they did me. You know, I had the term that I would almost baby the pitch, where you don't really throw it with your full speed or your full ability because you're not really sure where it's going to go. But seeing her throw an off-speed pitch after someone just got a base hit right up the middle, that shows a kind of confidence in herself and in her spins that you don't really see.
1-2 pitch hit into foul territory, not able to chase it down. The left fielder Vidrine, as it dropped pretty quickly there off the end of the bat. So we'll do 1-2 all over again, as Orgeron just doing the best she can to put bat on ball there as Hebert stays away from her on the outside.
Savannah Orgeron's one of the 4 seniors on this team. She's committed to play her college ball at Baton Rouge Community College.
And she hits that one well, and for a base hit. We think, actually, to throw the first, and the umpire was not ready. Wow, and with a big smile, and you can see admitting a mistake there, not in position, not thinking that Sacco would have an opportunity to make the throw from right field. And I tell you what, it looked like she might have been out by half a step there, too. So a tough break for Curtis, and you can understand Jerry Godfrey wanting to speak to said umpire about that error.
That was such a huge heads-up play by the right fielder. I'm sure Remy Hebert wants to run out there and give her a hug, high five or something, because that kept the floodgates from breaking open.
And we see help from the home plate umpire, and a good job there of the two-person crew working together. And we do, instead of a base hit, have a force out at first, and I'm very happy to see that kind of communication. And since you only have 2 umpires in this game, Katie, it's crucial that both are alert, even the one behind the plate who has so much to worry about to start off with.
And I feel like a lot of times excellent play. I feel like a lot of times we kind of don't give the umpires enough credit. I know in my years of playing, I've seen my share of umpires getting berated and getting yelled at. But, I mean, especially when there's only 2, like you said, they're not perfect. And, you know I couldn't do it. You know, there's a lot to keep up with, especially if you're trying to not get hit with a ball like the umpire was just trying not to do. So, you know, sometimes they don't see everything like we think they do.
Sliced over to left field, and the play made by Vidrine for out number 2 with the runner in scoring position. A big second out as Latoul was trying to go the other way with it, and Curtis playing excellent defensively around the diamond so far.
Yeah, that was a really big play by the third baseman. One of the earlier foul balls, you saw that ball kind of teetering along the line, and she let it go foul. And that was a really smart play because that ball was rolling just slow enough to where the batter probably could have made it to first base safely. Really big play, smart play.
So Hornosky will try to give the pick-me-up to Latoul here with 2 outs and try to put Mount Carmel in the lead, as we had good teamwork going on around the diamond by the Lady Patriots and good teamwork by our umpires to avoid what could have been a big mistake here in the game. 2-hopper over to third. Strong throw by Sanders and plenty of time to retire Hornosky and the side here in the top of the third inning. We're still scoreless through 2.5. We'll take a brief break here, as this is SportsNOLA.com Prep Softball presented by First NBC Bank. So 9-3 in your scorecard. We head to the bottom of the third. Pitcher's duel in progress between Remy Hebert of John Curtis and Shelby Wickersham of Mount Carmel as the Lady Patriots come into bat. In the top of the order, we'll see Wickersham here for the second time in the ballgame. Neal, Sacco, and Goodman. I'm Jude Young along with Katie Morse. And so far, so good. A well-played game with a lot on the line.
Yes, that was some very heads-up defense that we just saw by John Curtis. But on the flip side, those weren't some terrible hits that Mount Carmel got either. Those were some really hard-hit balls that just resulted in some very heads-up defensive plays. So this is going to be an interesting game, folks.
Hebert's not going to come up with many strikeouts against the Cubs lineup. So the defense behind her knows they need to be ready to make some plays today, whereas Wickersham already has 3 Ks through 2 innings and looking for more here against Neal, who was a strikeout victim in the first inning. Went for the swinging bunt and came up empty. Count 0-1.
And having that kind of confidence as a pitcher in your defense, knowing that you have girls behind you that can make big plays like that, it gives you such a piece up there on the mound. You know, if you don't have a full confidence in the girls behind you, you probably aren't going to throw your best. And that definitely helps out Hebert, especially not having as much experience as Shelby Wickersham.
Changing the eye angle, low then high, same result, a swinging strike and ahead 0-2. And who gains the advantage here, the hitter or the pitcher, when you're somebody like Wickersham who has a lot to work with in her repertoire versus these young hitters who are getting more looks at Wickersham for the second game in 10 days?
You know, you never want to have to face batters too many times in a row. You know, that's never the advantage, but you know, with in Shelby's case, she has so many different pitches, and you see all these players wearing these armbands. You know, she's got a lot that she can throw at them, and we've seen that in the hits that Curtis has gotten off of her. You've seen some little, you know, pop-ups. We've seen some spinning ground balls, and that just shows the repertoire that she has. But usually in the game of softball, hitting will usually always be ahead of pitching, simply because there's always more hitters than there are pitchers. There's, you know, 9 to 10 of them, and there's only one of you.
Very good point.
So the statistics aren't, you know, really in your favor.
Sacco, who has the only hit of the game so far for Curtis, an infield hit back in the first, stepping in. And those armbands, that has to play a benefit for the entire infield if they're paying attention to be able to see certain signs to know what's going on. If you know where the pitch is going to be, that affects you defensively. If you know where the pitch is going to be outside or inside. So I don't know how deeply they get involved with that with the Cubs, but you did see them practice this week and got a feel for how technical they can be defensively.
Yeah, I know that they've practiced big time on covering bunts, covering slaps, because that is something that John Curtis can do pretty well. And you see that pretty much everybody in the infield has those armbands. So what's probably on there, and of course I didn't get a chance to look at them, but
well, you didn't steal one for us, Katie? Come on.
Maybe I should have. No, what's probably on there is just the tendencies of each of these hitters. You know, lets them know right-handed or left-handed, can bunt, can hit oppo. You know, if it's anything like it was for me, especially being a pitcher, you know when someone steps up to the plate because you've studied them, you've watched film, you've got a scouting report on them. You know, for example, I'm not going to throw this kid anything on the inside corner because she can hit anything on the inside corner. So I'm going to keep things away from her hands, things like that. So you see Shelby looking down at her armband every single time. Now, I wasn't really a fan of the armband. You know, it was just a distraction to me. I would just as rather look at my pitching coach and get a signal. But, you know, softball is just a little bit different. It's also a fashion accessory, maybe.
Well, every little bit to guarantee proper communication. If the team's comfortable with it, and they get used to it day in, day out, working with it, you can understand that aspect. Some will go with the old traditional hand signals and whatnot. So whatever it takes to win, and both these programs know how to do that, is strikeout number 4 of the game a moment ago against Sacco. So 2 down here for Goodman, who reached on a fielder's choice and was in scoring position before Wickersham was able to get out of a jam back in inning number 1. 0-1 the count as, again, she checks the armband, and the right-hander brings it to the plate, and it's fouled straight back. Goodman got a good cut there on the 0-1 pitch, now behind in the count 0-2.
One thing you might notice with Goodman is that she has a split grip on the bat, and she wasn't doing that the first time that she batted. Usually that indicates that at any moment she can be ready to bunt or slap hit. You notice that her hands are about 2 to 3 inches apart, which you don't see in a normal just power hitter or someone who's swinging away.
0-2, and this is what you've noticed from Wickersham. She is not thrown with 2 strikes, anything in the strike zone. She's nibbling all around the plate and trying to get Curtis batters to chase, and she's had a great deal of success with it so far, and why would you? You see how far you can expand that zone on the hitter as the 1-2 comes, and just getting a piece of it. Actually, no, it gets away from the catcher, but a good job by Ortiz throwing down to Ciascio for the out on the strikeout, avoiding the wild pitch, and a second straight strikeout in a 1-2-3 inning for Wickersham and Mount Carmel. We're through 3 scoreless between John Curtis and Mount Carmel here, and just showing that savvy ability on the mound. Wickersham's really settled in.
That's a really big pitch to have there. You know, that's not something that a lot of pitchers can master. Sometimes, especially with right-handed pitchers, those outside pitches can be a little tricky sometimes. But when you want to pitch out, when you want to kind of get those batters to chase, that's a huge advantage. Like I've mentioned earlier, the whole point of that pitch, the whole strategy behind that is the farther away the ball is from the batter's eyes and the batter's hands, the less of a chance they're going to get good contact with it. And that's what you want, especially with 2 strikes. Because usually with 2 strikes, a batter's looking to swing at almost anything to avoid striking out. They would much rather hit a ground out or a fly out rather than swing and a miss, or, you know, not swinging at all. So those pitch outs are huge, especially at this level.
Mount Carmel with no runs on 2 hits. They've committed an error and left 2 on base. And for Curtis, no runs so far on 1 hit, have not committed an error, and left a couple, actually 3 on the bases through now 3.5 innings, or 2.5 innings, I should say. 3.5 as we go to the bottom, or excuse me, to the top of the 4th as we're through 3 here, as we get our bearings straight. And we'll have the 3, 4, and 5 hitters up for the Cubs: Perkins, Wickersham, and Alonso against Hebert, looking for the first run of this scoreless game in a 9-5A battle as they complete district play, as Katie was explaining earlier, with a couple of weeks to go before the playoffs, as a fastball strike taken below the belt starts things off against Perkins by Hebert. And both of these teams have basically been playing regular season games for just over a month, so they're just getting into their groove at this point, and they'll be through district play. So you don't like to see that with the district schedule. Teams like to peak later in the season, right before the playoffs, and usually that's district games.
Exactly. And like we mentioned earlier, that 2-week gap that these teams are going to face, you know, at some point, the rest does help. You know, if you're used to playing a game every other day, like with the high school schedule, taking a few days off can help. But anything more than 3 or 4 days is detrimental to these teams, especially with their young arms who are used to throwing every single day. You know, so hopefully these 2 teams, when they move along to playoffs, they can find teams that they can scrimmage or play against, because it's hard playing against yourself every day.
Perkins lifts one foul and out of play. She lined out to center to end the top of the 1st inning in her first look at Hebert, and she's got a lot of power. So when you get to this middle of the order against the Cubs and you're Hebert, you're definitely trying not to make a mistake pitch out over the plate, because Mount Carmel can make you pay. 0-2 and getting her to chase low, having to throw down as Langford, and does so with the clean pick and fire to Piku for the strikeout. And always impressive when you can handle somebody as talented as Perkins, now 0-2.
And I just saw Hebert do something very pitcher-like. It's something I did all the time. You notice that she hit a foul ball earlier, and so she waited until they got that ball back, and she said, "No, I want that ball. I don't want the extra ball you just gave me. I want that ball," which seems very trivial. It's like, oh, it's just softball. They're all the same. They are not, especially to a pitcher. One ball is completely different than the other. And you saw once she got her quote-unquote good ball back, she got a strikeout. Driven
into the gap in right center, but Goodman over, and actually almost overran it in plenty of time. And Wickersham now also 0-2 as she hit that one well, but Goodman can cover a lot of ground out there as the center fielder, and their speed on display there, almost to her detriment.
She almost ran past it a little too fast. I never had that problem. I wish that would have been my problem. Too fast.
We have a bit of a delay here. We look at what Hebert's been able to do so far. How has she been successful to this point against the Curtis lineup, who last time touched her up for 11 hits? That was just 10 days ago.
Exactly. It looks like 2 completely different teams. Looks like 2 completely different sets of hitters and a completely different pitcher. this is the first time we've really seen Riehm kind of have a little bit of a hiccup. But I think her ability to come right back at these hitters after, the first few innings, they had some hard hit balls, especially right back at her, and then her defense came and made some big plays behind her. So I think if she can keep her composure and keep throwing at these players like she has been, she'll do great.
Abby Alonso looking to step in here with 2 outs and try to start a rally for the Cubs. And after taking that time, it may have looked trivial just to fly out to right field, but a well-hit ball, and you want to be careful with this middle of the order against the Cubs if you're the Lady Patriots and the freshman out there on the rubber as she misses low with her first pitch. And what do you think that strategy session was about?
Out on the mound, it could be a number of things. But to me, it looked like she kind of stepped out there and told her maybe to just take her time. She has 2 outs. Maybe she looks like she's rushing a bit in between pitches.
And another right-handed hitter goes the opposite way and goes to the wall on a hop. And speeding around the bases is Alonso, stopping at second. The first extra base hit of this game with 2 outs for Abby Alonso, and the Cubs perhaps in business. Second straight right-handed hitter looking to go the other way and hit the ball hard.
And that seems to be a bit of a rookie mistake there with, when you've got good hitters, like you said, in the middle of this lineup, the meat of this lineup, don't want to throw anything towards the center of the plate. Don't want to give these kids anything they can hit. And they paid for it there. That was a really hard hit ball. First, like you said, extra base hit we've seen today.
Third hit of the game for the Cubs, so with 2 outs and the runner in scoring position, Hebert misses low and away to Ortiz, the catcher, who has some pop as well, and that's pretty much true of most of the hitters in the middle of this lineup, about 5 in a row that can go very deep, as that one's in the turf. And I always make that mistake. I stopped myself and I didn't say dirt the first time in the ball game on a pitch, but that tells you both of these pitchers have been really good at their command out there. And Hebert just smiles again, even though she's behind 0-2. And what's a bit of a pressure situation here? Top of the fourth, 2 outs, and the runner at second. And a fastball strike on the outside corner. Too young to know any better, but I think that's just confidence as well in knowing what her abilities are with Riehm Hebert out there.
And, you did see a little bit of miscommunication there a couple pitches ago, especially with the runner on second base. It looked like the catcher was probably going to throw it to second, and Riehm didn't get out of the way fast enough and almost didn't catch the throw back to her.
And Langford let that one get away from her, what looked to be a pass ball on first view here, allowing the runner to move down Alonso to third base. Just went under her glove there on what was a ball that you would think would be catchable. So now a bit more pressure as even an infield hit can score the first run of this game. 3-1 pitches up and away, and it's a walk as well. And that ball is slipping out of the hands and allowing the run to score, as trying to recover it was Sandras, compounding the area as the throw gets away from Hebert covering the plate. And that puts Ortiz at second base, so there's a young team finally cracking there under pressure.
Yeah, and I'm trying to process kind of what just happened. It looked like maybe the catcher went to fake a throw towards third to try to get the runner to come back, and it just slipped out of her hand there.
Appears so. Went between the plate and third and came off of the brick, I believe, there below the gate before the dugout area. And Sandras, the third sacker, tried to do the best she could there, but the throw wouldn't have been in time anyway. Would have needed to be perfect right on the plate, as Alonso had the 2-out double, scores the first run of this game, and Mount Carmel looking for more as Ortiz is now down at second. I tell you what, that's just one of those tough breaks of the game, and Curtis can't let this one get away from him if they can help it. Pitch high, and that one gets away on the throw back, which was hurried by the catcher Langford, and that's when you start to wonder what's going on in her mind right now.
And when you have two teams like this who are so talented and who are, going up against each other, they've played each other before, a lot of times it's going to come down to who's going to make the first mistake. And we've seen the result of that here.
As Ortiz had drawn the walk on the 3-1 pitch, and Langford behind the plate tried to catch the runner at third. Alonso napping and made a key error. And the first of this game for Curtis, costly, and hoping it's not even more costly as that ball's driven deep to center. Goodman back off of her glove, and to the wall, and it's 2-0 Cubs. And rounding second after a bit of delay over to third and safe sliding in, Ciascio, and may have injured herself, not able to get up and run as the relay throw got away once more. But Ciascio with a 2-out triple, and it's 2-zip in favor of the Cubs.
And she looked like she slowed down a little bit rounding second base. She looked like she wanted to stop at second base, but Coach Bailey was waving her over to third, and she's almost lucky that it wasn't a little bit of a better throw. Had that been a closer throw, they might have thrown her out at third base, but hopefully she's okay. She looked like she hurt her shoulder sliding in. It looks like it's got a wrap on it already. It looks like it might not be in the best shape to begin with.
So tough there for her to have to gut it out on what's difficult when you talk about these turf fields again, sliding. It depends on some are very cushiony and have a lot of bounce and others don't, and how you if you're used to sliding on third, it's a completely different experience, and she may have started her slide a little bit late there to cause that jamming effect, but it looks like she's going to gut it out and stay in the ballgame.
Sometimes when you're on turf, when you go to slide, you almost don't stop, and it feels like you're on a slip and slide. So sometimes when you know that in the back of your head, maybe you slide differently than you would normally on a dirt field.
So Ciascio able to come through big time, and that pitch low to Savarese, who had a hit back in the third. Mount Carmel with 2 runs here in the 4th inning, and it all started with 2 outs as Remy Hebert was in control on the rubber, and from there a double by Alonzo. Ortiz reached on a walk, and the error by Langford behind the plate, allowing the first run to score as the 1-0 pitch is taken check swing for a strike. And then it was Ciascio with the big triple, and these batters willing to go the other way with power. That seems to be the change in the strategy in this inning, as even Wickersham's flyout was well hit before this rally, which is now a 3-0 score in favor of Mount Carmel. The third run scores as Savarese drives in Ciascio, and Mount Carmel has found the big inning.
I'm really impressed with the Cubs' ability to hit the ball where it's pitched. Like you mentioned, they all went the opposite way with those big hits, and that's not something that you see very often, especially in younger hitters. Their ability to not just swing as hard as they can and hope they just make contact, but reading the pitch and swinging when the ball gets to the spot it's going to be. Really impressive hitting, and you can see those fundamentals and that work paying off, from the cages to hitting off of tees. Being able to hit the ball where it's pitched shows the difference in a good hitter and a great hitter. Third
hit of the inning as Mount Carmel looks to keep it going with the 9-hole hitter Ogeron, and a delayed run on the pitch that's low and almost over-slotting the bag. We see that slip and slide effect out there coming into play, but Savarese able to keep her fingertips on it and get herself into scoring position.
It looks like Langford is having a bit of trouble back there behind the plate. Maybe the turf is kind of getting to her. At practice when I went the other day, she was splitting time with other players back there at practice. So maybe that was, didn't know she was going to be catching today, or she was used to splitting time back there behind the plate. She looks like she needs to just settle in and calm herself down and play her game.
And Hebert trying to pitch down in the zone for these dangerous Cub hitters, so giving Langford a bit of a workout. 2-1, pulled foul past first to make it 2-2 here with 2 outs. And if you're a Lady Patriot, you just want to get out of this inning.
Yeah, this is just one of the moments, and every pitcher's been there. You just wish you could just hit fast forward and get to the next inning, get to the dugout. But this is where you kind of separate, excuse the term, the men from the boys, so to speak. If you can have the ability to go at hitters, even though you're down 3 runs and they've scored all these runs with 2 outs, that shows a maturity at a level that you usually don't see in a freshman. But she hasn't seemed to have changed. Her demeanor, her body language hasn't changed. It's impressive.
Full count to Orgeron, who reached, or would have reached, on what looked like a base hit to right that turned into a fielder's choice. As that's a great diving play at second by Dean, able to recover and throw in time, and John Curtis needed it. The out is recorded to end the half inning, but Mount Carmel with a big inning with 3 runs on 3 hits. An error by the Lady Patriots and 1 left as we go to the bottom of the 4th. Now Mount Carmel with some breathing room, leading 3-0 over John Curtis, and starting to sense that undisputed district title in 9-5-8. Jude Young along with Katie Morse in this presentation of of softball here on SportsNola.com, presented by First NBC Bank. And we were talking about the poise and the control that Abear and company, this young Curtis team, was playing with until clearly the wheels came off a bit there, and some well-hit balls by Mount Carmel allowing them to take advantage of it.
It was just a combination of, like you said, some error mixed with a little bit of some very good hit balls, and that's sometimes a combination that can be deadly. And so I'm also excited to see maybe a new life, a breath of fresh air in Shelby Wickersham, because when your team gets ahead a little bit, you kind of get to relax, take a breath, and we might see a totally different attitude coming out of her now that her team's ahead by 3 runs.
And Wickersham is awfully talented and used to being in these pressure situations now with some room with which to work, and we'll see how the Lady Patriots can respond, as they've been held to 1 hit so far, and Wickersham has struck out 5.
Really impressive to have, like you said, struck out 5 batters. It's only been 4 innings, so you can average 1 to 2 strikeouts an inning. That's you're doing your job as a pitcher. And I think a lot of young players, especially girls who want to be pitchers, kind of had this misconception that it's their job to strike everybody out, and it's really not. Your job as a pitcher, as I've always been taught, is to have your hitters you want them. They don't necessarily have to strike
out here as best we can. We'll see.
Sometimes even with all the marvels of modern technology, sometimes it's just out to get us.
Well, my favorite is when you don't touch anything and something goes wrong, and something went wrong there for Wickersham, as that is over the fence and gone for the home run. Batting in the 4-hole, that's what you're supposed to do, and Alyssa Dean launches one, and talk about a response. Curtis on the board, now trailing 3-1.
You could not have asked for a better response from John Curtis than what we just saw. I mean, the momentum has swung completely back into their favor, and that's something huge that's going to carry them for the rest of the game. No outs. They've cut the deficit down by 2, well, now to 2. So, you could not have asked for anything better. And that was a rope. I mean, that was that ball was clearly going out of here.
That would have gone out pretty much any softball facility you'll see in Louisiana. It was hammered by Dean. And if you're Curtis, suddenly you're getting vocal there in the dugout on the third base line, and you believe you can make something happen here as Piku tries to step in and see if she can repeat the feat here against Wickersham, who you can be sure won't be shaken very much by that. We'll see. First pitch is just low around the knees. But if you are Wickersham, you get the 3-run lead. You want to challenge hitters a bit more, but the biggest bat in the lineup made her pay for it.
Yeah, sometimes you got to kind of take your chances with probably not the 4th-hole hitter. It looks like she might have, made a mistake there, kind of missed right over the plate. Looked like she was trying to throw a curveball that didn't really get some spin on it till towards the end there. And so sometimes when you miss, the worst place to miss is right across the plate.
A hanging curve ball. No matter what the size of the ball,
Exactly.
If there's a diamond and you do it, you could pay dearly for it, and Wickersham did is that's a perfectly deadened bunt and no chance for Ortiz hopping up behind the plate. It doesn't get much better than what Piku just did there, laying down the bunt. And now Curtis brings a tying run to the plate with nobody out as they go long ball and then small ball back to back as an answer to the Cubs.
And those moments right there, like we just saw, that's the moments where the curveball tends to come back and bite you in the behind a little bit. What a curveball tends to do, especially when it's bunted, is exactly like we saw there. It kind of spins the reverse way that it's hit, and it just stops. And that's a textbook perfect bunt. Because the whole point of a bunt is you want to cease that spin. You want to essentially catch that ball with your bat and get it to stop spinning and land dead on the ground. And it was just far enough away from the catcher and just far enough away from the third baseman to where she could reach first base safely. And maybe that's something that they know to do against Wickersham, is that she does have that curveball, and that is one of the curses of the curveball, is that sometimes if you bunt it just perfectly, you're going to be safe at first base.
So Riehm bunts one foul there off the end of the bat. We noticed the conference behind the rubber a moment ago, and it was that senior leadership you hope to see step up if you're Mount Carmel, as Maddie Ciascio was trying to get Wickersham's mind right here after the big home run by Dean, and then the bunt single by Piku as another bunt attempt is fouled straight back into the screen, and the count's now 0-2 to Riehm, who grounded out back to the mound in her first at-bat in the second.
Now that is an adjustment that I'm excited to see Shelby make. We saw that when she tried to bunt that one went straight up, which means more than likely she just threw a rise ball. So if she knows that these kids are coming at her with some bunts, usually as a pitcher you're going to throw balls up in the zone, especially some with some backspin on them, because the best case scenario here for the defense would be for someone to pop up this bunt or pop up something to the infield. So if she knows that these hitters are going to try to play some small ball, she's probably going to start throwing some things up in the zone here.
And Jerry Godfrey had something to say to his left fielder, the junior Courtney Vadreen, who now shows bunt again. That looked like that hit the bat twice, and it did. And the umpire right on the spot noticed it. And you don't see that very often. She lowered the bat to get the ball down, and then it hit the bat again. And it hit the bat again in fair territory. So we're going to see if he says that Vadreen is out, and as a result it is a foul out on the bunt, how it's recorded there. Interesting, you don't see that very often, a bunt attempt like that happen that way, but it does go down as a strikeout, and that's number 6 of the game for Wickersham. Not able to advance the runner is Vadreen, and Sandras will step in now. She grounded out to second her first time up and takes a pitch low and in as Wickersham tries to work inside, it looks like, early to these hitters. If you're just joining us, Mount Carmel put up a 3 spot in the top of the 4th to take the lead, and John Curtis has responded as Alyssa Dean hit one over the fence in deep left center, and then Piku followed up with a bunt single. 1 out now as she's over at first, and this one's fouled straight back. A good hack of it there by Sandras at the plate. Count 1-1.
And this is a chance for John Curtis to really step up and pick their pitches. With this momentum over there on their side, some of these hitters might have a tendency to swing at more pitches than you normally would, just because they have this excitement. You know, they only got 1 out. They came with a home run right off the bat, and they've got runners on base. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether these players can kind of sit back, relax, and pick the pitches that they really want to hit, and not just go up there with some excitement and swing away. And you saw that she took that pitch that maybe looked a little bit outside, but was called a strike.
Came across the plate on the off speed as Wickersham now ahead in the count 1-2 with the runner on first and to the plate and trying to get Sandras to expand her zone. No dice to even the count 2-2.
It's a really nice pitch there by Wickersham. We saw the pitch before that was just a little bit closer to the plate, and she saw that she did take a little nibble at it. Didn't swing all the way, but she looked like she wanted it. So she said, okay, I'll see if I can take you even farther out. If you might swing it the one a little bit closer, I'll see if I can take you farther out.
The 2-2 coming, and got in on the hands and up, swing and a miss, and a second straight strikeout as Wickersham has settled down here after the 2 straight hits. 2 down as Langford will step in with the runner still over at first. And, hey, that could be the emotions of the game. You relax a little bit with the 3-run lead. Dean made her pay the price with the home run. Piku reaches on the bunt, and from there, Wickersham needed to bear down again. Her first pitch here to Langford is up and away. And that's just the emotions of the game as you try to continue to be technical out there when you're a pitcher on the rubber.
It's all a game of momentum, and pitching, is so mental. The fundamentals of it, the skills of it, a lot of people can do this, but what makes a great pitcher is the ability and the mental toughness to get through all these situations. And that's just really impressive that she could have a home run just rocked off of her right off the bat to respond to the 3 runs that they scored, and then you see her strike out 2 right after that. So it's really impressive to see her still have control of her pitches. We haven't seen a lot of balls get past the catcher. Usually you see that's a sign of panic, but she has the command out there, and she's not going to go down without a fight.
She's looking to work more, it looks like, the outer half of the plate and beyond. Painted the black a moment ago before that pitch to make it 2-1. The runner over at first is Peyton Piku, the junior who reached on a bunt single after the home run by Alyssa Dean. 3-1 Mount Carmel leads. 2-1 the pitch with 2 outs, and off speed again, changing and pulling the string just a little bit. 2-2 the count. She's starting to change speeds a bit more here the past couple of hitters.
Changeups are just so fun. Changeups are just one of those pitches where when they work, they're fantastic, and when they don't, sometimes they get hit over the fence. And especially with Shelby's just pure power with her regular pitches, those off-speed pitches are even better.
That, a little gas, up and away, swing and a miss. 3 straight strikeouts and a big-time response for Shelby Wickersham to retire the side. But Curtis with a run on the homer by Dean on 2 hits, no errors, and 1 left on base as we're through 4. And finally, a little action in this ball game as the Cubs lead the Lady Patriots 3-1, and Wickersham now has worked her way up to 7 strikeouts. And after the little bit of a wake-up call, she showed why she's one of the better pitchers in any division or classification in the state of Louisiana.
In the first couple of innings, I thought this was going to be a pitcher's duel. And, being a pitcher, I love those. But, viewers don't want to see a pitcher's duel. They want to see some balls hit. So
now, wait a second. As a pitcher, you want half a pitcher's duel. You're dueling with yourself, and your teammates are putting up the runs.
I want it to be one-sided. No, but as a pitcher, I always kind of root for them, and why wouldn't I? But, the viewers don't want to see a pitcher's duel. That's boring, So I'm glad we got to give everybody a little something of what they want here.
What was the old saying in the ad campaign? Chicks dig the long ball. Yeah. Chicks dig the long ball when they're Alyssa Dean and can knock it off the fence. Everybody likes high scoring. Every sport seems to tweak its rules, too, towards having higher scoring games. How have you seen softball affected over the years in that respect? It seems to be a game where it's been pretty stable in that aspect.
It really has. And there were certain rules, when you're coming up through league ball where they would have restrictions on maybe the number of innings that a pitcher could pitch, especially coming through, city league and things like that. There was a rule where a pitcher could only pitch 5 innings a week, but you had 2 games that you had to play in a week. And so that was there to keep maybe some dominating players from, letting these other kids hit and essentially score, like you said. So there have been some adjustments, now and again, that rule is no longer in effect. And that's one of the beauties of softball is just the ability for someone to pitch. If you want to pitch 5 games in a day, you can most certainly do that. It's very different from baseball.
Top of the order with Alyssa Latoul leading off for the Cubs here in the 5th. And Mount Carmel leading 3-1, and Hebert doing what you don't want to do here, is that get behind as the order has been turned over again by Mount Carmel, and now 2-0 the count to the right fielder.
Yeah, this is where Hebert is going to want to try to see where her pitches are going to stay, stick to her strengths. She doesn't want to try to experiment too many times. She doesn't have a lot of room for error. She needs to really stick with what she knows and not give these girls anything to hit. She needs to try to work around these hitters because, as we've seen, they can hit it and they can hit it where it's pitched. So she's going to have to try to use her strengths and work in and out of the zone. Don't really want to throw at these girls at this point.
Again, just a freshman out there. The top pitcher for Curtis as that one is popped up, and an easy play for the shortstop, Neal, for out number 1.
Macy Hernosky stepping up to the plate. She has signed to the University of Missouri at Kansas City. She's one of the 3 seniors who have signed to go on to play and continue their softball careers in college. And she's also named to the 2017 LHSCA All-Star team. She'll represent the East team. Very big honor for her there.
And she chokes up on the bat a little bit there and takes that running start, a slap hitter, if you will, one of the many strategies of hitting in the game. And she really choked up there and then took a strike on the outside corner to fall behind 0-2.
And as you mentioned, especially as a pitcher, that's one of the first things you look at when a batter steps up to the plate, especially a left-handed one, is where her hands are on the bat. Usually if your hands are up like that, that's the ability to change what you're going to do. If your hands are a little bit up, maybe you give yourself the option to bunt, maybe give yourself the option to slap, squeeze, bunt, things like that. So, that's one of the first things a pitcher should look for in a left-handed hitter is where her hands are on the bat.
1-2 and takes the off speed that just misses. Good eye there. And that has to affect your ability to read pitches as well. When you're taking that momentum towards the pitcher, you have to really understand ball angles and the release point out of the hand.
And it's a lot of footwork. We put so much emphasis on the hands as hitters, but most of it is footwork.
Sanders is fun to watch over there at third. She handled that awfully well to the glove side and made the throw over to Piku in plenty of time. And there are 2 outs here and exactly what the Lady Patriots wanted to see to start off the inning. But, of course, it was 2-out lightning that got things going for the Cubs back in the 4th. And 3-hole hitter Jordan Perkins, the junior, stepping in here as she looks for her first hit. Lined out to center in the 1st and struck out swinging in the 4th and hit that one past Sanders. No chance on that play for a 2-out base hit. And Perkins was eventually going to get something she liked and make her mark at the plate in this game as the Cubs have a runner on with 2 down.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that kid's bat to come alive this game. She's one of the stronger hitters in this lineup. And then, you look behind her and then you see Shelby come up right behind her, which is another advantage. The older you get in softball, the higher levels that you see, you don't really see pitchers that can also hit for themselves. And when you have that ability to put someone in that can also hit,
Langford, an easy play behind the plate on the foul pop for the out as Wickersham now 0 for 3 in the ball game. And that will retire the side, so the 2-out single by Perkins doesn't do any damage. And we go to the bottom of the 5th with Mount Carmel leading 3-1. Jude Young along with Katie Morse here bringing you this important finale in District 9 5A as Mount Carmel plays for sole possession of the title, and John Curtis trying to go for a share of the crown. And we mentioned a little earlier the odd playoff format. Not enough teams to fill all these brackets. All 8 will go to Sulphur in Division 1, including these 2 teams. And Mount Carmel and Curtis are the 2nd and 3rd seed respectively as of this point, with plenty of games to play in the final couple of weeks as these teams have filled their schedule in after district before the playoffs, the shortened playoffs. So that's another interesting aspect to this too. If you're Curtis in particular, there's less pressure, but a chance to have that experience in Sulphur and a chance to get things done. And if you're Mount Carmel, you're one of the co-favorites here along with Evangel, the number 1 seed at this point.
Right, and it's an interesting dynamic. It was completely different than when I played. When we would make it to state, sometimes you would play teams you'd almost never even heard of, teams that you didn't even know existed because you're playing teams from all over. But, there's a very good chance that these 2 teams could play each other, for state. And it's an interesting dynamic. If Mount Carmel wins today, you don't usually play a team in the playoffs that you've already beaten twice. It's not seen a lot. So it's very different. It's a very different format, but these teams are just going to have to get used to it and adjust their schedule accordingly and mix up their strategy. Maybe they change up pitchers in district. Maybe you throw somebody different against them in regular play than you would in playoffs. I mean, you don't usually play someone a 3rd time when you get to playoffs, especially if you've beaten them more than once.
District foes Dominican and Archbishop Chappelle are the 5th and 6th seed respectively. Again, at this point in the power rankings, as that one was just a bit high from Wickersham, who uncorked one there for ball 1 as we start off the bottom of the 5th, 9-1-2 up for the Lady Patriots, and Remy Hebert, who struck out in the second, trying to help her cause on the mound here at the plate. And some discussions about the ball. Maybe will it stay in play after hitting the brick behind the plate, but it looks like it will stay in play, or will it? I didn't see the final verdict there. I think she still has that ball.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, we are very particular about the
That's why I brought
softballs
it up.
that we pitch. I mean, if one feels just a little bit differently than the last one I had, you better believe I'll wait the extra 10 seconds and get that other ball back. And that is the first pitch that I've seen really get away from Shelby today. And, you know, she kind of just laughed it off. I saw her look at the catcher, and she was like, "My bad, dude." So, you know, that just shows her attitude out there. She didn't panic. She's just like, whoops, sometimes that just happens.
You don't see her flash the smiles as much as her opposing pitcher here. Hebert comes up empty again to fall behind 1-2. She's a pretty cool-looking customer out there, Shelby Wickersham. And we'll talk a little bit as we continue here about the ball grip and the seams and how that comes into play. For those who are familiar with baseball versus softball, some differences and similarities there. 1-2 to the plate and missing outside is Wickersham. What is the difference between how you want seams? If you're a pitcher, do you want them more raised or lower and a more smooth ball?
Well, essentially, you know, one of the biggest differences in softball and baseball pitching is that the majority of the grips that we use are underneath the ball, whereas baseball, your hand's over the top of the ball. And with the grips with softball, you know, you prefer a lot of raised seams. You know, you want balls that are really thick with their seams, because having your hand underneath the ball, you have to kind of generate that force yourself. You don't really have gravity helping you out there getting that spin. So usually what we like to call the juicier the seams, the better. So, you know, that's why these pitchers are very particular about the softballs that they play with here.
And these come off an assembly line, but they're not all exactly the
are
same
not all
as
created
hoped.
equal.
Exactly right. With one out, back to the top of the order, and Neal, who's 0 for 2, struck out in the first and grounded out to third, back in the third, as you start to count outs a little bit here at this point here in the fifth, with Curtis trailing by a couple, and you get to the top of the order. What could be for the last time, you'd like to generate some action as that one stays up, and it's 2-0 to Neal.
And this is where Shelby really wants to play to her strengths and work through. We're now back at the top of the lineup here, and maybe she wants to kind of play it to where towards the end of the game she's down towards the end of their lineup, so you don't have to see these girls again for the third or fourth time in a game. So she really needs to go at these hitters early, try to get these early outs while she can, because like you said, at this point, if I'm out there pitching, I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm going, okay, how many more outs is there? How many more times do I have to see, for example, Bree Neal up here at the plate when we're back at the top of the lineup? So she really needs to try to get these quick outs here in the fifth.
And she know Goodman and Dean 3 and 4 in the lineup. She doesn't want to put runners on, but she does just that by giving up her second free pass of the ball game. And Neal does the job she's put up at the top of the order to do, get on base and set the table with one out here for Sacco. Sierra Sacco, who's 1 for 2, had a hit back in the first, struck out her last time up in the third inning against Wickersham. We'll have to deal with a runner on here, and we'll see what Curtis does to think about, even with one out, moving over the runner for Goodman.
Really interested to see what this left-handed hitter does here. Was she going to bunt? Looks like she's thinking about it here.
And if you're Wickersham, obviously you want to work the ball away from her to make it as difficult as possible. When you know a batter's likely to bunt or sure to bunt, what would you go with, your go-to? Would you go with a fastball and try to get the ball up to get a pop-up on the bunt, or would you go off speed to throw off the timing of the hitter?
Ideally, if you know a batter's going to bunt, you want to throw something up in the zone, up in their eyes, and something usually away from their hands. My go-to was a rise ball towards the outside corner, away from the batter, because like I've mentioned before, when someone's bunting, their strength is their eyes and their hands, and you want to keep the ball away from their eyes and their hands as much as possible. But on the flip side, you also want something with backspin on it. You don't want anything that's going to spin down. So, for example, you don't really want to throw a drop ball to someone, even not really a fastball, because it might spin down into the ground and stick. The best case scenario for this defense is for her to pop up. So you want to kind of throw her something with some backspin, throw her something that's going to get up into the air, something that's not going to stick into the ground and potentially cause some problems for this defense.
Sacco was swinging and protecting with 2 strikes, 0-2 still the count, with Neal crouched and ready on the bag over at first. Bottom of the fifth, Curtis down by 2, and the slap swing is fouled off near the end of the bat. And we'll do 0-2 once more. And if you're Sacco, you're just trying to stay alive. And putting the ball in play is key because we've seen a little bit of shakiness today by Mount Carmel. We saw a lot more in the first matchup. And, hey, Wickersham's going to strike out a lot of hitters. You put the ball in play, you've got a chance. Anything can happen. And that's what Sacco will try to do here. 0-2 and fouls that one straight back. Got a pretty good cut there on a ball tailing away from her.
Especially when you have kids that have some speed, like the one at the plate and the one at first base. Like you mentioned before, Shelby's going to strike these girls out. So any ball that they can put into play and then leave it up to the defense to make a mistake, that's to their advantage. Because in this situation, with the speed that's on the base pass and the speed that's at home plate, that fielder's going to have to cleanly field the ball and make a perfect throw to wherever she's going, and usually that's not going to happen.
Late time given, and just to be sure, even though Sacco heard it, she swung at the pitch anyway, knowing you never know when it comes to the discretion of blue behind the plate, but time clearly given there before the release of the pitch. I don't think Wickersham liked it too much, but she'll settle back in, and that can shake a pitcher up a little bit, but they obviously have to get over that pretty quickly with work to do.
And usually as a pitcher, you want to make the batter wait on you. You don't want to, sit up there on the mound and let the batter kind of do their thing and wait on them. You kind of want to have command of the timing, have command of the seconds that are in between each pitch. And anytime someone disrupts that timing, kind of throws off people a little bit.
Sacco back in the box, waggling that bat around, waiting for the 1-2, and takes another one away. So 2 straight balls, and Sacco's battled nicely here to keep herself alive with 1 out and the runner over at first, and that'll lead to a little mini conference here between the catcher Ortiz and Wickersham just to get their signal straight here with the importance of these final stages of this game going for an outright district title. And Curtis, after falling behind 3-1, showed some life last inning and now has the key hitters in their order up to try to come back here on the Cubs. And Sacco's really active. You see her outside of the box, plenty of herky-jerky swings. She's just trying to keep herself loose and have that quick twitch when she knows what Wickersham can bring to the plate with gas. And that time the pitcher wins the battle. And it's strikeout number 9 for Wickersham, her second here in the 5th to bring up Cam Goodman with 2 outs.
That was a huge strikeout there by Shelby, but on the flip side, that was an excellent at-bat from, like we mentioned before, an 8th grader.
8th grader, amazing.
That there was some composure there, like you mentioned. She took her time. She commanded the plate a little bit. She even called a timeout. I mean, how dare you, 8th grader, call a timeout on me, you know what I'm saying? So, that was an excellent at-bat from someone who's not been playing very long. Very nice job.
And Goodman, the 3-hole hitter, showing bunt again here well before the windup by the pitcher. With 2 outs here, Goodman trying to reach base any way she can. Now pulls back the bat on the 0-1 and comes up empty. 0-2, count clearly favoring Wickersham here. Would love to strike out Goodman and not have to deal with Alyssa Dean, who hit the homer off of her last time.
And I know this is something that the Cubs were working on in preparation for this game. That's one of the first things that Coach Katie Bailey mentioned to me that they were practicing was bunt coverage. Who goes where when this happens and things like that, because Curtis knows that that's going to be one of their strengths here. And that drop foul ball would have been a huge out there. The sun looked a little bit tricky, though.
Yeah, a little bit of the sun now out here. Came out about an inning into this game in the eyes of Savarese, who came over towards the screen, a field she's not familiar with as well. And I think she didn't give herself as much space as was available there. So if you're Wickersham, you have to shake that off and bring another 0-2 to the plate to Goodman, who again shows bunt early, pulls the bat back, and the pitch is taken low. Now a delayed steal, and Neal is in easily. Ortiz probably shouldn't have even risked the throw there, but Ortiz takes away the force out and puts herself in scoring position in a 2-run game for Goodman, and a little bit of the running game that Curtis likes to utilize at work at an opportune time.
Yeah, this puts them in excellent position. You got a runner in scoring position here. You do have 2 outs, but she's got the ability to place the ball where it might need to go here.
And once more, Goodman going the other way and fouling that one over that fencing and out of play. And just like Sacco, Goodman really battling here and making Wickersham throw plenty of pitches and use everything she's got out there to try to get out of it.
And that's one thing, especially you see a confidence building in these hitters. This is not the first time that they've seen her in this game. So as a hitter, you kind of relax a little bit. You have a little bit more confidence. There we see her calling timeout, making Shelby step back onto the mound. And any time a batter's seen you for the second or third time, like we mentioned before, statistically their chances of getting on base kind of gets a little bit higher each time.
And hit right back to the mound off the bare hand of Wickersham and into center field for a hit, and Curtis will draw within a run, and Goodman never stopped going full speed, getting herself to second base on the throw back in from center by Alonzo. Mount Carmel maybe caught sleeping there as Wickersham put her bare hand up there instead of the glove. May have deflected off of it slightly and found its way to center field as Goodman has brought Curtis within one here with the 2-out RBI single.
Couldn't have asked for anything more from Goodman. Excellent hit when they needed it the most. My heart kind of stopped a little bit. She's out there checking her hand. Just a reflex sometimes. Sometimes it's just in self-defense that you stick whatever you have in the way of that ball to either keep it from hitting your face or, trying to field it in some way. She looks like she's okay, but that was a really hard hit ball, and now we're right back where we were a few moments ago.
A little to her right, the third base side, and that's her pitching bare hand, and that reflex almost costly there, but the hit costly in and of itself to draw Curtis within one, and now Neal takes one way outside. She reached on an error in the first and blasted one to deep left center back in the fourth, and she could give her team the lead with one swing of the bat, and Wickersham knows that as well as anybody.
Yeah, and you see Cam Goodman took a huge lead on that ball. She almost went all the way to where the shortstop's standing, and when a batter's up to the plate who's just hit one over the fence, you have a little bit of a confidence. Say, I could take this big of a lead. With her speed and then the bat that's at home plate right now, you think you have the ability to do that. Really interested to see that dynamic with the catcher that's behind the plate for the Cubs. Got a really, really good arm, so that might be a little bit risky taking a lead that big
and
here at this
swinging
point.
And missing on the 2-0 count as Dean, as we apologize for video difficulties momentarily here. In a 3-2 game, bottom of the fifth with 2 out, but Curtis has the potential tying run in Cam Goodman down at second base with cleanup hitter Alyssa Dean at the plate against Shelby Wickersham. Wickersham came up with a big pitch a moment ago, and now Dean steps out asking for time.
Here we go. Like we mentioned before, here we go again. Any time that timing is a little bit disrupted, that shows a kind of confidence in the hitter. She's going to make Shelby take her time, kind of disrupt her timing. She is a little bit of a quick pitcher. And what I mean by that is she doesn't really take her time in between pitches. She kind of walks to the back, flips her ponytail, and steps right back onto the mound. Doesn't like to really take her time there. So maybe that's a strategy of John Curtis, is to disrupt that quick pitch timing.
Dean extremely frustrated on a pitch that looked to be off the plate but called a strike. Dean did check her swing, but it was called a strike, and now takes one in on the hands way in and fouls it into the screen to stay alive at 2-2. And those mind games that go on between hitter and pitcher certainly happening here. Goodman a threat to run, but not going to run themselves out of the inning are the Lady Patriots as she's down at second base. Just trying to be another thought in the mind of Wickersham, who strolls back to the rubber and now stepping behind the circle for a moment, knowing this is a big point in this ball game with Mount Carmel leading 3-2. Goodman again down at second. Dean waiting on the 2-2 pitch with 2 outs and swings at a pitch up around her eyes and hits a high fly ball towards the line, drifting and making the play, the left fielder Orgeron, to retire the side. A huge out in this game for the Cubs to get this team through 5 innings with the 1-run lead, 3-2, as Curtis was able to get a couple of runners on, including the RBI single by Goodman, scoring 1, but stranded at second was Goodman. And now, if you're Mount Carmel at this point, you know you've got to come up with a bit more offense here to help out your pitcher, Shelby Wickersham, as Curtis has scored now in consecutive half innings after falling behind 3-0. And again, a team that's got that feeling of nothing to lose, they've got to be playing pretty loose right now.
Exactly. This is the time where you kind of want to look inward as a team, look at each other and say, this is the time that we need to put it away. and really get the hits when it counts, because now everybody's a little bit tired. Both pitchers are tired. All the hitters have seen these pitches several times. We have a little bit of advantage, and let's keep it. And on the other hand, Curtis over here seems to have a little bit of momentum. They've got another pitcher warming up over on the side.
Try to get her number for you. She's not facing us, so we can't see, but just having another option there, although they tend to stick with Hebert, and it looks like it is number 44, Cameron Costanza, another freshman, of course. What would you expect from this young Lady Patriots team? But I think they hope that Hebert can continue to stay calm out there. She's been throwing a lot of strikes for the most part and making MCA batters put the ball in play. That seems to be the secret to success when Curtis is playing well, and they're playing very well right now, and they'll try to keep within a run here as we head to the top of the 6th. And leading things off from the right-hand side, as I'm not sure if we have video back yet, is Alonzo, and she was about a bit out of front of that one. She's 2 for 2 in the game. She fouled that one third base side, but she had a single back in the second. Doubled and scored a run in the 4th, so she's had nice success against Hebert, and we do have video back, happy to say, so we'll drop from radio mode and settle in here as you watch the pictures from John Curtis Lower School. Pitch outside corner not given, and you can tell Hebert's frustrated because a pitch that looked further off the plate than that was given just moments ago to Wickersham in a key situation.
And sometimes as a pitcher, even though you do disagree with it, as Remy clearly disagreed with that call, sometimes you have to look within yourself and really not show that emotion up there. There's some high tension going on right now. We're in a bit of a sticky situation here with 3-2 score. You really want to go at these hitters, but that's not the time to really show your emotions. You kind of want to keep that in to yourself.
2-1 is hit the other way on the fastball. Keeping the glove down nicely is Dean. Didn't let it get through the wickets, and she threw over to first for the out. 4-3 on your scorecard. 1 down here to start off the 6th, and that'll bring Ortiz to the plate, who's 0 for 1 and walked her last time to the dish.
That's the second really nice defensive play that I've seen Alyssa Dean make. She's a junior. She actually played catcher last year. So, you know, that might explain why she's got some quick reaction. You see she almost kind of fell to her knees to field that ball. It's almost very catcher-esque there. Right
up the middle for the base hit, Ortiz. So she reaches on hit number 7 against Remy Hebert with 1 out here in the top of the 6th. And you mentioned Dean. She's the only returning starter on this team. She is the experience for this lineup, and interesting that she moves from behind the plate, an important position, to be over at second base, but we've seen the value of that with her comfort. And we've seen from Hebert, she throws so many strikes and not a big strikeout pitcher. Her defense seems to be the more alert of the two as a result, because they're used to balls being put in play. They're on their toes ready.
And that's something that Coach Godfrey mentioned to me earlier. He said in the years that he's coached, he's, been used to replacing, maybe 3 or 4 seniors each year. But he said this is the first time he's essentially had to replace almost the entire lineup. And like you mentioned, that's a really big decision to take a catcher who's essentially the leader of the team, almost the quarterback of the field, and put her out at second base. But she's obviously one of the best gloves on the team. And maybe that's a testament to Hebert, who's on the mound. Maybe that's to help complement her pitching style, as we've seen a lot of balls go towards that side of the field today.
0-2 pitch fought off by Maddie Ciascio, who had an RBI triple her last time to the plate, 1 for 2 in the game. And Hebert needs to be a bit careful with her emotions, a bit annoyed with the home plate umpire, even upset after getting a strike call, trying to work that outside corner a couple pitches ago. And now working quickly, 0-2. And see what happens? You don't get that call when you show up the umpire. She smiles, but hey, freshman, you got to learn the lesson. The umpire's in charge, and your histrionics is only going to work against you.
You always want to be really, really nice to the man that's going to call your balls and your strikes. I always made it a point, no matter how I was feeling at a certain time, to either keep a smile on my face or not show much emotion at all. You never really want to let someone know that you're a little bit aggravated or disagree with their call, because we all are human. Sometimes they remember that kind of stuff.
And that one's hit hard up the middle on a line to center fielder Goodman for a base hit, who nearly runs back to the infield on it with her momentum. So 2 straight base hits, well-hit balls up the middle. And these Mount Carmel batters, they've certainly adjusted. They know that Hebert's going to work middle out against them, and they've had 2 straight well-hit balls with 1 out to try to add to their 1-run lead as Savarese, who's 2 for 2 with an RBI, steps into the box.
Be interested to see how Hebert responds to this. Like we've mentioned a few times, almost every ball that's been hit by the Cubs has been towards the right side or up the middle here. So maybe she needs to adjust her strategy and go in a little bit towards these right-handed hitters' hands, maybe make them pull the ball, go towards the left side of the field, because as we've seen, they can hit balls away from them. So maybe try to test them and see what they can do towards the left side of the field.
Savarese had a good swing there on the 1-0, fouling it straight back. So we can kind of guess why we saw another pitcher warming up a little bit a while ago, because MCA, the better hitting team of these two, starting to get more comfortable with their cuts against the freshman Hebert, who brings the 1-1 to the plate with 1 out and does not receive the call on the outside corner. And she's dug a little bit of this hole for herself with her attitude out there, and that may add to the need to adjust and perhaps pitch into these right-handed hitters.
And we just saw Coach Godfrey over there on the side. He kind of came out of the dugout there and started talking to his outfield. And
that is pulled past the third baseman fair down the line. 1 run will score to the plate. Ortiz sliding in. Actually, that is the courtesy runner, Madly Giglio, the 8th grader, who we can see why she's used in that role. Great speed all the way, and Mount Carmel has tacked on a run to lead 4-2 on the 3rd straight base hit of the inning for the Cubs, and Savarese's 2nd run driven in.
Yeah, Maddie Giglio, we just saw come in, sliding into home plate. That's one of the players that Coach Katie Bailey said, I know she was an 8th grader, but I saw her at the 8th grade, JV tryouts, and I saw her speed, and I said, I got to have this kid. That's an asset, to any team, is having someone that has just pure speed. There were times where kids get recruited to college just for their ability to run really fast. They might not be able to hit, they might not be able to field very well, maybe not play a position that well, but if they can run, they will find themselves being of use to a team.
Big pressure situation for Curtis now, and Hebert trying not to let this game get away from the Lady Patriots, who fell behind 3-0 and battled back with single runs their last 2 times to the plate to give themselves a chance. But now the Cubs up 4-2 and looking for more as Ogeron takes a pitch low, trying to paint that outside corner. And again, right now, this is teetering on the edge because you're facing the 8-hole hitter at this point, and the Cubs already have a run in. If they flip this order over again, it could really blow up in the face of the hosts here, the Lady Patriots. Mount Carmel's so used to putting together the big inning. 2-1 pitch to the plate, and that a gorgeous pitch for a strike. Some of the Mount Carmel fans didn't like it, but it looked good, certainly over the plate around the knees.
And it looks like some smart hitting by the Cubs. Maybe they're recognizing that this umpire's not calling quite as much, not calling quite as far away from the plate, so that gives them the option to maybe sit back and take a couple pitches.
The 2-2 hit towards first and fielded and straight to the bag. Piku, or only play, so both runners move up into scoring position on the 2nd out. Piku not making a risky play there and making the right decision in order to give Hebert a shot here to try to get out of this inning with only 1 run score, but she'll have to do so against the leadoff hitter, Latoul, who's looking for her first hit. She's 0 for 3.
Looks like there seems to be a little bit of confusion here with third base coach and Latoul checking the armbands.
Better safe than sorry for the junior Latoul. Alyssa Latoul, the right fielder, and in a situation here where she could perhaps put this game out of reach with the quality of Wickersham out there on the rubber for Mount Carmel. Bit of an open stance in the box. Latoul waits for the first pitch, and boy, she took that one up and in, coming towards the pitcher, and ducked her head in time.
And you mentioned her open stance there with her feet. Usually that indicates that she's going to do some variation of a slap bunt, because that moving that essentially right foot out of the way of the left to make that transition with the feet. And there we see it there.
A swing, but right back to the hill, and the side hand toss there by Hebert fielded it well to retire the side. A very big out in this game as Mount Carmel was able to add a run on 3 straight base hits. The RBI single, 2nd of the game for Savarese, and 2 left in scoring position by John Curtis. As we go to the bottom of the 6th, And now the Cubs leading 4-2 over the Patriots. Jude Young with Katie Morse here at the lower school of John Curtis Christian. And two really good programs matching up today. And we've seen a very well-played ball game for the most part.
We have. We've seen some excellent defensive plays. We've seen some heads-up hitting, some timely hitting. But as anybody who watches softball knows, that the game can go any way at any time. And all Curtis would need is just a little bit of something to get this game going here. Just a string of some hits here. Momentum is the game in softball. It's all about where the momentum happens to fall at any given time. And if Curtis can get something going, there's no telling where this game's going to go by the end.
So with 6 more outs to work with, if you're Curtis, you're just trying to continue the game plan of putting the ball in play against Wickersham. But if you're the pitcher in this spot, we saw her relax a little bit and Curtis cash in with a run on the homer by Dean when the Cubs went up 3-0. Now, you know one swing of the bat with nobody on base is going to beat you. Is that the kind of thing that comes into your mind at this point late in the game for the pitcher? Oh,
most definitely. Because like I said before, softball is just a game of inches. It's a game of moments. And, one pitch that gets missed, like we saw earlier, we saw her get a home run hit off of her by a pitch that missed just a little bit. So, the game can break open. That's definitely in her mind, but you probably couldn't tell looking at her. She does have a little bit of a calmness about her, and that's probably because they've tacked on that extra run, making it 4-2. Gives you a little bit of a breath of fresh air going into the end of the game.
Peyton Piku to lead off for the Lady Patriots. She's 1 for 2 at a base hit. Her last time up back in the 4th against Wickersham, who struck out 9 Lady Patriots so far. And she'll try to continue her mastery of the lineup with a strike over the plate. But Curtis has done a nice job of simply battling at the plate and putting balls in play. They have 4 hits, and they've made the Cubs work a bit defensively here, and they certainly didn't drop their heads when they fell behind by 3 runs. Now down 2 as Wickersham continues to check that wristband and throws a pitch that may have been slightly foul-tipped, but a swinging strike, and it's 0-2 to Piku with Fadrine and Sandras also due up in the inning for John Curtis.
I've really been impressed with John Curtis and their ability to kind of change up their strategy at the plate. We've seen some hard hit balls, we've seen some bunts, we've seen some slap bunts. That's something that's really hard to defend and essentially really hard to pitch against. So I've really been impressed with the variety of bats that we've seen at the plate here today with the Patriots.
The late afternoon, early evening sun over the field. Plenty of shadows now out there, but a bit of a sun field in left that you have to keep an eye on, as Ogeron, the left fielder for the Cubs, will have to deal with that for now. And the inside corner is called. Strikeout looking. I think that's the first strikeout looking we've seen in this ball game, and there have been 10 of them now by Shelby Wickersham.
That's some really excellent pitching. And, sometimes the score doesn't really reflect how well a pitcher does. We do see those 2 runs up there from Curtis, but anytime you strike out 10 batters in a game, you've done more than your job. She's done an excellent job here today, and she's kind of setting the tone with that strikeout here to kind of wrap the game up, throwing another strike there. She's saying, hey, let's put a bow on this and let's go back to the house.
Raven Sandras now down 0-1 in the count. She's 0 for 2 in the ball game. Struck out and grounded out. And Curtis just trying to take it one at bat at a time. And right now Wickersham's coming right after the hitters with the 2-run lead. And again ahead 0-2.
It's funny that you did mention how the sun's kind of peeking through. It's actually turned out to be a really pretty afternoon.
Hasn't it?
We wouldn't have thought that about 4 hours ago when we were wondering if this game was going to even get played today. But, that's the advantage of a turf field and maybe one of the advantages of Louisiana weather. You've always been told if you don't like the weather here, just wait a minute, it'll change.
I had a feeling one of us was going to use that line today. You beat me to it. Strikeout number 11, 2 straight go down for the Lady Patriots as Wickersham showing that dominance now with 2 down. She'll deal with Langford, who walked back in the 2nd and struck out in the 4th. I was almost 100% sure that line was going to come up, and really this is a great example of it. It was pouring, flooding in some parts of the area this morning, and now really a beautiful evening for baseball. A bit of a cool breeze here at the ballpark as well as in on the hands. It's fouled into the screen, And no surprise, Wickersham's going right after these hitters.
And, you wouldn't think sometimes that the weather would have such an effect, but, mentally for a pitcher especially, if you wake up in the morning thinking that you're going to pitch, I know I have a game today, and then maybe around 2 o'clock, like it happened today, we get the news that maybe this game isn't going to be played today. So sometimes mentally you kind of turn off that pitcher mode,
right.
And then a couple hours later you find out, oh, hey, guess what? You are playing today. So sometimes, especially at this level of softball and with the weather doing like it has done today, you kind of have to switch that back on and off and really get back in the softball mode. So I'm sure around 2:30 today she was wondering, am I going to have to turn on the pitcher switch today?
The 1-2 to the plate and hit right past the ear of Wickersham in the center field for a base hit. And that up the middle approach, both teams have used it quite a bit today, and Langford got all of that one, and Wickersham says she's fine, making a motion to the dugout. But that one, even closer than the one that nearly took off her pitching right hand an inning ago.
That might have been hit just as hard as the home run we saw earlier. And I was going to mention this earlier, especially now with softball and the advances of technology and the equipment that we have, I'm surprised not to see any of these girls wearing face masks out here on this field. A lot of younger leagues have made it mandatory, especially for pitchers, to wear that face mask. I know when I first started pitching back eons ago, it seems that those masks were very heavy. They were just being introduced into the softball world, and they almost felt like a catcher's mask or a batting helmet. You felt like Darth Vader a little bit, like you couldn't breathe. But now everything's so well made that you almost feel like you don't have anything on. And, when you've got hitters that can hit that hard, we've seen 2 or 3 balls go right by her face. I'm actually surprised that none of these players here today have any of that type of equipment on, especially on this turf field where the balls can take those nasty hops at any time.
So Sandra's able to reach with 2 outs, and that brings up Langford, who takes one up and away. We have a courtesy runner at first, and it's Haley Vetrano, a freshman for the Lady Patriots. Again, adding a little bit of that speed element, but she's not the important runner. It is Langford at the plate who represents the tying run in this ballgame, bottom of the 6th, with the Lady Patriots running out of outs against Wickersham. 1-0 is taken for a strike.
And like we mentioned before, Langford seemed to struggle a little bit behind the plate. She kind of made some oopsies earlier in the game that were costly for Curtis, so I'd really like to see her redeem herself. She's got an excellent swing. You see her taking her practice cuts over there away from the box. She's got an excellent swing. I would really love to see her redeem herself here. That one way up, and she's not fishing and ahead in the count as a result. Langford 2-1 against Wickersham. I made an oopsie a moment ago. I mislabeled Sandras as Langford. Now Langford at the plate. Sandras with her first hit a moment ago, and the 5th of the game for Curtis. But they trail by 2 runs and running out of time here on their home field. As asking for time is Langford, receiving it, stepping out a bit. But what you like about softball, it is a very fast-paced game. Yes.
Even when the timeouts are called, players are ready to get back to it pretty quickly. That, a gorgeous pitch on the inside corner for a strike to make it 2-2 here with 2 outs.
And, I know we got probably a lot of baseball fans listening. No offense, baseball fans. Softball's so much more fun to watch. Just because it's so much more fast-paced, the field's smaller, and like you mentioned, there's not a lot of in-between time, and I know a lot of people who are listening right now who know me hate to hear me say that, but, sometimes softball's just got a different dynamic than a lot of other sports do, and you see that and when it's gaining popularity, especially there's more softball games being shown on TV, on major networks. It's definitely one of the most popular sports among girls in our country today. Growing up playing softball when I was younger, I was kind of the odd man out among my friends, as all my friends were playing basketball. And now it seems to be the reverse, that if you're not playing softball, you're kind of the odd man out now.
Vetrano able to reach second on the wild pitch by Wickersham, taking away the force for Mount Carmel. And once again, Langford asking for time. And you always know the method here for Wickersham. Mount Carmel, she's going to check her armband. So until that happens, you've got plenty of time for the umpire to work with you if you want to call time and throw her off. 3-2 to the plate. And it is, what is the call? The walk is allowed. Pointing to first base was the home plate umpire and threw off everybody for a second there, thinking he was signaling strike.
I was a little bit confused there too. I'm surprised she turned, didn't turn around and go back to the dugout. Like you mentioned, it looked like he was calling her out there with the swing of his arm.
Langford reaching for the second time in this game via bases on balls, the only 2 allowed by Wickersham, and that brings up, we believe we'll see, a pinch hitter for the pitcher, Abear. We see another replacement runner, Alyssa Ochoa, an 8th grader. So we got a freshman and an 8th grader here on the bases in a crucial situation for this young John Curtis team, trailing 4-2. And it looks like we're going to see, as we try to figure out who's going to bat here.
Number 5.
Number 5. Well, this is a mystery. That must be Colette Delhomme? No. It'll be, we were not given her name, I guess, was it? Here we go. Riley Faubacher was 25 on our handwritten roster here, but she is a freshman, and she's about ready to step in, and that'll lead to a conversation by the battery here before a change in the lineup as head coach Jerry Godfrey sits there pondering the situation around the plate before his hitter can step in there. Curtis trailing by 2 to Mount Carmel. The Cubs undefeated in district at 5-0. Lady Patriots 4-1, last district game for both. So you can guess what the stakes are in this ball game if you're just joining us. And Curtis right here with 2 outs could use a huge hit in a crucial situation by a replacement in Riley Faubacher.
I could just imagine the tension for both teams because whichever way this game goes, one team's going to walk away heartbroken. In Mount Carmel's case, if they lose this game, they're going home thinking, man, we could have had this district championship outright, been undefeated in district play. And then on the flip side, if you're Curtis, you're thinking to yourself, man, we were just that close. So this is a very high-stakes game for both of these teams. And in this situation, this is the classic hero situation. You bring in a pinch hitter with 2 outs, 2 runners on base, and always excited to kind of root for the underdog here, so to speak, hoping to see something happen.
And Curtis had late inning magic, trailing 6-0 against Mount Carmel through 5 innings in the first matchup back on the 20th, and scored 2 runs in each of the last 2 innings to put pressure on MCA, and they're trying to come up with some magic here, and taking a pitch upstairs to even the count at 1-1 is the pinch hitter Riley Faubacher with a pair of courtesy runners on base. Vitrano down at second and Ochoa over at first. Ochoa representing a potential tying run in this ball game. And if you're Faubacher, just trying to put the ball in play and take your chances, but can't come up with anything on that swing to fall behind 1-2. Flip the order if you can. Get Neal to the dish, a pesky leadoff hitter, and you've done your job. But Wickersham has come up with big strikeouts often in her career, and she's looking for another one here. To the plate with the 1-2, and she does. Gets the pinch hitter freshman swinging at 1 out of the zone. And in the end, Wickersham strikes out the side and strands 2. As we're through 6 innings here, big moment there for Wickersham and a young team learning on the fly. Faubacher in a tough spot trying to deal with a great junior pitcher.
And like you said, that's a learning moment there for Faubacher, going up against a very seasoned pitcher, someone who has a lot of pitches in her repertoire. It is a high-tense situation, high intensity, but that's a moment where you kind of have to step back and calm down and let the pitcher kind of throw down to you. We saw her chase several pitches there. Even the last pitch that she swung at was way up in her hands. And so that's definitely a learning experience for her there. You can guarantee she's never going to forget that at bat. And if she can help it, never swing at a pitch like that again.
So Curtis trailing Mount Carmel 4-2, the Cubs an inning away from an undisputed district title. And they'll try to play add-on here for Wickersham at the plate with 2, 3, and 4 due up in the order. Honosky, Perkins, and Wickersham herself due up third.
Yeah, this is exactly where you want to be in this lineup for the Cubs. They couldn't have drawn it up any better. They've got their best hitters coming up to the plate. And now at this point, Hebert is just trying to do some damage control, maybe, stop the fire from spreading, so to speak. Get these outs, 1, 2, 3, and then give her team another chance to score some more runs. So we see two different attitudes coming up to the plate. Hebert is saying, hey, I need to kind of put an end to this here. And then the Cubs are saying, let's just get some more lanyap while we can. Let's just have fun with it now.
Cubs with 4 runs on 9 hits in this game, as Hebert has wiggled out of trouble here and there. And they keep her team in range as the Cubs have left 6 on base through 6 innings.
Looks like we may have a little bit of lineup confusion. Coach Bailey was talking with the umpire. Now you see her dad, her assistant coach, Mr. Jimmy Bailey, looking to just make sure that their notes are right.
That'll lead to a bit of a delay here, and trying to guess what the confusion could be regarding perhaps use of multiple courtesy runners in the last half inning. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because we did see Curtis put in a pair of courtesy runners.
And then the pinch hitter for Hebert.
Exactly. And you always want to make sure your bookkeeping is right, because sometimes it can come back and bite you in the butt, or you look back and see that maybe the other team made a mistake that you could have taken advantage of. We see Coach Godfrey over there shaking his head, wondering maybe what the heck's going on.
And I believe that's Christy Hebert, mother of the pitcher and coaching legend here at Curtis, now an administrator who's helping out. I'm sure that her bookkeeping is likely pretty good from her experience. At one point, late 90s into the early 2000s, she coached Curtis to 5 straight state championships in softball amongst the success of the Lady Patriots program. And now Godfrey, audibly frustrated, ready to get back underway as we continue to have discussion with the first-year head coach, Kati Bailey, for the Cubs with the home plate umpire.
And this is the point as a coach with Coach Godfrey. Maybe you want to let your pitcher know to maybe step to the side and start throwing some more pitches underhanded, because anytime you take a significant time in between and let that arm rest a little bit, let it get cold, sometimes that's not very good. And there have definitely been moments in my career where I've had to kind of step to the side and play pitch and catch with my third baseman or my shortstop just to keep my arm going. So hopefully we kind of figure out what the bookkeeping error was. Hopefully it's been solved.
We'll see how Hebert responds, and she responds by throwing a strike, coming up empty, running up at it for Mount Carmel is Macy Hornosky, who's 0 for 3, a line out and a couple of ground outs in the game so far. Mount Carmel would like a little bit more security than this 2-run lead. Off speed, bounces at the plate, count 1-1.
Like we mentioned earlier, Hornosky, she's one of the 3 seniors who have signed a scholarship. She's going to go on to play at the University of Missouri at Kansas City. And she was also selected to the 2017 LHSCA All-Star team. She's the only player on her team.
Softly hit on a hop to the mound, and Hornosky retired by Hebert with the throw over to first. For the first out here in the 7th, top of the inning, Mount Carmel looking for some insurance runs. And we see a lot of accolades when you talk about this Mount Carmel roster, an accomplished, experienced team, including the 4 seniors. And no surprise, they're sending several onto the college ranks, as that ball had a lot of movement, dipping low and in to Perkins. Jordan Perkins, heading to LSU, is 1 for 3 in the game, had a base hitter last time up.
And these upperclassmen have really been pillars of this team, according to Coach Kati Bailey, not only with their teammates on the field, scoring runs and making big plays, but Coach Bailey said that they helped her as a coach step in and make that transition as a first-year coach. She said they were kind of the go-betweens with her and the rest of the team, because as you can imagine, a first year for any coach at any level has a bit of its growing pains. And she said that these seniors especially really help bridge the gap and really help give them the successful season that they're experiencing up to this point.
Sandra sure-handed, and a good throw again from third. 2 straight ground outs here for Hebert to bring up Wickersham with 2 outs.
And I'm really excited. I hope Shelby can kind of redeem herself here. She's had a really great day in the circle, but not too hot of a day in the box. So it's always exciting to see a pitcher who can also hit for herself. Wouldn't mind seeing some fireworks here.
Popped out a couple of times and flew out to center as well, 0 for 3. And Wickersham, as we had mentioned early in the broadcast, was a terror at the plate in the first matchup with 2 hits and 3 runs driven in. Now she's even the count at 1-1, just getting a piece of that last pitch. And she's obviously a very talented hitter as well. But what's her future at LSU as she moves forward, assuming that she does follow through with a commitment as just a junior right now?
Historically, most pitchers in college don't hit. And it's for a lot of reasons. You know, it's the risk of injury. We saw a couple pitches ago, there was a pitch that kind of came in on her hands. You run the risk of injuring your finger sliding or injuring your hand when you're hitting. But usually it's because you spend so much time concentrating on pitching that you don't really have the time to practice hitting. And if you have to pick one of the two, you want to pick being the better pitcher. But you do have, you know, some unicorns, as I like to call them, who not only can pitch, but they can really hit as well. Now, when we're talking about LSU, as we know, they've got some great hitters that have come up through LSU. And, you know, there might be some competition there. So more than likely, she's going to focus on just pitching once she becomes a Tiger.
Just the second walk of the game given up by Hebert there to allow the base runner with 2 outs. And Mount Carmel will go to the bench for a replacement runner here, and it'll be Julia Fulham, a sophomore, making her first appearance this afternoon. As that brings up Alonzo, who has had success against Hebert today, swinging the bat 2 for 3 and scored a run, had a double back in the 4th. Last time up, grounded out on a sharply hit ball to second base and takes a ball low and outside to make it 1-0.
Abby was one of the players I was the most excited to meet when I went out to their practice, because Coach Bailey let me know that Abby was excited to meet me, which, you know, kind of dumbfounded me, but that's because she says she wants to be a sports broadcaster when she gets older. She wants to go on to work for ESPN and the likes of that. And I said, well, I'm honored, you know, that you want to talk to little old me. And, you know, I offered her, you know, a little bit of advice, some tricks of the trade, but she was just a really bright light in the practice the other day.
Sharply hitting Goodman actually slid in the outfield and now throws it past the cutoff person and allows a run to score, as Goodman felt the need, I should say, to slide on the sharply hit ball past second and Dean. And by the time the center fielder for the Lady Patriots recovered, she threw it over 2 potential cutoffs in the middle infield, allowing the run to score, as the courtesy runner Fulham never stopped, full speed around from first, and a big insurance run as a result to give the Cubs a 3-run cushion.
That couldn't have come at a better time for the Cubs. We're in the last inning of the game, and that just puts the pressure here on the Patriots. You saw Alonzo kind of giving her teammate a sign with her hands, kind of telling her to calm down, maybe relax a little bit, telling Ashley Ortiz to just take her time. And this is a time where you do want to relax a little bit. You've got a cushion. Pick your pitches and hit the pitch you want to hit. We're not in a very stressful situation, so take your time and get your hacks.
So no RBI credited to Alonzo, obviously, as the runner scored on the throw. But a big situation brewing here is 3 runs tough enough against Shelby Wickersham, but 1 more would be huge as well, as Ortiz, with a lot of pop, takes the 1-0, and the high strike is called to even the count. Alonzo, by the way, now 3 for 4 in the game. Savarese has 2 runs driven in for the Cubs as well, a couple of the stars at the plate so far. Ortiz 1 for 2 with a walk, hits a 3-hopper towards second, fielded well, and throwing on the run is Dean to retire the side, but the damage done as Mount Carmel able to turn a walk and a base hit into a run and leave 1 on base, but increase their lead to 5-2. Last at-bat time for the Lady Patriots to try to stay alive and try to deny the Cubs an outright district title. Jude Young along with Katie Morse, who, by the way, not only a former college pitcher, not only an experienced broadcaster, sideline reporter as well, doing color today, but doing a great job with social media and other work at Tulane University. And you're proving the importance of being versatile and being a role model to these young ladies as they grow up. That's a big part of it because you've come up the ranks as a student athlete and had great success, and the student part paid off with your success now in the professional world.
Most definitely, and first of all, thank you. It's
You're
nice
welcome.
Compliments. But that's one of the things that I did, mention to Abby yesterday when she kind of wanted to pick my brain and talk about where I got to where I am today. And I told her you got to have the ability to kind of do it all, much like you kind of do in softball. Softball has so many skills you have to be able to do, and especially nowadays in the sports media world, you have to be able to do everything. As you know, you have to be able to write a little bit, you have to be able to speak well, you have to be able to kind of do some things in some high-pressure situations. And I will say being a student athlete at the college level really did help me. In my future and with my career. It was the best times of my life, but there are some days when I miss it. Some days when I remember that, hey, I could be on a bus right now and studying for a test, and you think you're not going to miss those times, but you really, really do. And softball really kind of helped put me on a good springboard for where I am now. And really having fun at Tulane, doing a lot of their digital media work for the football team with head coach Willie Fritz, and we're having a lot of fun out there in NOLA.
Trying to build a program uptown that the folks can be proud of, and the olive and blue, as they like to say, on the campus of Tulane University, and two programs that are awfully proud of their softball teams and success over the years. Coming down to perhaps the final half inning, Curtis needs to score 3 at least to keep this one going, and a pitch for a strike by Wickersham on the outside corner. She has a dozen strikeouts, and she has been able to work around a couple of tough situations and jams, her ability to strike out hitters being so important. But she'll have to deal with the top of the order for Curtis here with Bree Neal, who reached on a walk and stole a base last time up, 0 for 2. And Wickersham doing what she didn't want to do, fall behind here to the first hitter with a 3-run advantage.
Curtis really is in the best situation that they could ask for at this point. They're back at the top of their lineup. Hopefully they can get something going. We see this split stance again, jumping back to regular one. Bree's just really dangerous with her speed and with her ability to swing away and to bunt and slap hit. And as a pitcher, that's always a little bit of a threat. You don't really know what to throw a kid sometimes when she can do it all.
The one thing we've noticed, Wickersham doesn't give in very often. It's a mistake if it's out over the plate, that 2-0 pitch painting the black. Now the 2-1, and that time took a little bit off of it, and that's all it took. And it's 2-2.
And as I mentioned before, Shelby's ability to take some speed off of these pitches in turn makes her power pitching even more effective. When you have the ability to throw a ball as hard as she can throw it, if you can perfect that off speed, it makes you even more dangerous as a pitcher.
2-2 and slapped the other way on a hop for a base hit near the left field line. Ogeron gets it back in quickly, but Neal does the job, gets herself on base, and just the 6th hit of the game for Curtis, but at a big time. With the last at-bat facing the Lady Patriots, a runner on for Sierra Sacco. Sacco, 1 for 3, had a hit back in the first, but has struck out swinging the last 2 times up against Wickersham, but the Patriots putting some pressure on the Cubs here.
And you saw her teammate Cam Goodman step up to her right before she got into the batter's box and kind of said a few words to her, maybe trying to calm her down, maybe show some she's just a sophomore, but maybe show some guidance, show some wisdom, like I mentioned before.
Well, if you're a sophomore with an 8th grader, that's
exactly.
experience.
You're an upperclassman, man. But, she's definitely one of the more vocal kids on this team, as I've said before, a natural leader, and it's really nice to always see a teammate helping out another.
Sacco trying to reach via the bunt and just foul, and gloved by Savarese in foul territory, charging in. Count 1-1. And we mentioned Goodman being on deck. And then Dean, who has the home run to her credit, the cleanup hitter, would love to see the bases full of Lady Patriots for our opportunity against Wickersham. And we see more guidance coming from Goodman. Extended conversation there with Sacco.
I'd love to have the ability to hear what she's telling her, because you can see a little bit of emotion coming from Sacco at times. You saw it earlier when she was coming off the field from the outfield when she didn't make the best throw coming in. So you can kind of see that age come out at some points, but skill-wise, this kid's great. And she's going to be even more dangerous in 2 to 3 years. I can't wait to see what she does as a junior or a senior.
And plenty of speed if she can just put the ball on the ground somewhere to put pressure on the Cubs defensively. And may see something she can work with here on a 2-1 count, although we've had to credit Wickersham doing a good job throughout the contest of not giving in. Here's the 2-1, and she goes up, and Sacco does not chase. 3-1 the count to the 8th grader with a chance again, if she can reach, to bring a potential tying run to the dish.
And you did mention that she has, I believe, a dozen strikeouts in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just a testament to her ability to control her pitches and to not fold under pressure. As I mentioned before, anytime you can get 1 strikeout an inning, that's great, but that's almost 2 strikeouts an inning if we're going by the numbers here. So I'd really be interested to hear what Coach Bailey's telling her team out on the mound right now. She called in all the team, everybody on the field up to the pitcher's mound. So she's probably telling them, hey, guys, this is the time to, hold on to our bootstraps and get things together. We've only got 3 more outs. If you're doing the math, you're saying, hey, I only got 3 more outs. Let's get this thing wrapped up.
And Jerry Godfrey giving instructions here. A lot of smiles there on the huddle. We can see closest to us right in front of the plate with the Lady Patriots. And I ask you this, 3-1 count here, an 8th grader at the plate. Is there any reason at all that you have her take the bat off the shoulder on this particular pitch? Do you make Wickersham throw a strike with 3 balls in the count?
I would say I would make this pitcher work a little bit. I would make her earn her strikes. And, she's had good control so far, but we have seen a couple pitches get away from her a few times. And so maybe this is the time you kind of sit back and take this risk and see if you might get walked.
Instead, a pitch to work with is fouled off, and Sacco, you can see, a bit disappointed in herself as that was belled high and something she could put down in fair territory, and she came up with a foul ball instead.
And like we mentioned before, in this situation, when it looks like somebody's going to bunt, we'll probably see something thrown up towards their hand, something with a little bit of a backspin on it. Wonder what Coach Godfrey's telling her over there on the side. Maybe changing the strategy up a little bit, maybe having her swing away. We'll see.
Coach Godfrey probably has an even better idea of what Wickersham might try to do, what the pitch call might be from the opposing dugout with his experience versus how young this team is. So you always wonder what the chess game is like as it's happening, but when it comes down to it, it's about execution, and Sacco takes an extra practice cut before stepping into the box from the left side for a full count pitch with the runner Neal over at first and nobody out. Bottom of the 7th, swing and a miss, and it looks like again Wickersham willing to go off speed on a big pitch, and it turns into strikeout lucky number 13.
Like I said, that ability to change that speed, and sometimes there doesn't even have to be that big of a difference. Let's say you average a 60-mile-an-hour fastball. You don't have to go in throwing a 50-mile-an-hour changeup for there to be that big of a difference. Sometimes just a few miles an hour gets the job done, just like we saw there.
Goodman saw one up around her chin over the plate and tried to do something with it with a full swing. She didn't get cheated, but she's behind 0-1. She tasked with trying to reach base with Dean, the cleanup hitter, on deck. The 0-1 slashed foul, well hit, but outside of third as Goodman falls behind 0-2 to Wickersham.
And you kind of see her showing bunt at the very beginning of her swing. And a lot of times when you see that, because she obviously did swing away there, that kind of helps left-handed hitters with their timing, especially up against a right-handed pitcher. So you see her kind of getting her timing ready, kind of timing it with Shelby's body language, because you see as soon as Shelby starts her motion, we see Goodman adjust as well. That
her standard operating procedure, at least today it has been. And again, she knew when to call time just as the look towards Wickersham's wristband happened. She got the call in, now in the box, and in on the hands, hits a slow roll and a tough play, and it needed to be fielded perfectly by Hornowski, and it wasn't. It would have been a great play to retire the speed of Goodman, who did what she needed to do, put it in play on the ground and reaches base on the infield single. That brings up Dean as the tying run here, potentially with one out. Dean launched one in the fourth inning, reaching an error back in the first, and flew out to left her last time to the plate. Big situation for Alyssa Dean. And timeout is called, and Wickersham, seeing that these Lady Patriots are not going to go down quietly here in their final at-bat.
And we've seen Curtis earlier in this game. They've learned that sometimes all you have to do is just put the ball in play and then let the defense kind of make their mistakes, because with Cam Goodman's speed, as we saw earlier, they would have had to have fielded that perfectly cleanly and then make a perfect throw. And that just wasn't in the cards for them at this point. So we'll just see if they can get the ball in play and see how the cards fall here. As I mentioned, that they've learned that all they got to do is make contact, and sometimes things are going to fall their way.
Wickersham might have taken a deep breath after that good cut. Now Dean pops it up right in front of the plate. Tough play, and it's not made, and that was in fair territory. Nobody's covering third, as Ortiz, the catcher, could have retired the lead runner there, but asleep at the wheel as three on the infield came towards the plate, including Wickersham and the third baseman, Savarese. Awfully costly defensive mistake there on what should have been an out on the pop-up to begin with. Could have been a force out instead. Bases loaded for John Curtis with just one out here. Wow. And now we have an appeal of some sort. Let's see. And Jerry Godfrey's a bit upset. Not sure why. Looks like everybody for the Lady Patriots is safe on the bags here, but Godfrey, is he perhaps arguing some sort of interference on that school? Sure, the infield fly rule. Did we see a signal for that? And the two umpires will have to discuss matters and figure this out.
Some disagreement from the crowd also. And someone being called out. We'll see who exactly is getting called out. And it must
be the batter. That's got to be the infield fly rule. Now, my question is, was it signaled by one of the two umpires? Because that should have been an instantaneous call, not a retroactive one.
Right, and I can kind of see and understand.
Or what are they saying here? They're saying it was the batter,
in the way
Piku.
Of the pitcher. Ah, okay. And I could kind of understand Coach Godfrey's.
Excuse me, correction, Dean. Mm-hmm. So saying that she somehow interfered there. Wow, what a big call, swing and a miss. Still a chance as the tying potential runner if Piku can get on at the plate. Now down to perhaps her final two strikes, 0-1 the count.
And that could have been disastrous for Mount Carmel. There was the whole defense was sleeping at that point. You know, not only was the pop-up not caught between three people, the pitcher, the third baseman, and the catcher, but no one was covering third base. And as somebody who's seasoned out there in the field, you know if you're not in the play, you need to be doing a job covering a base, something like that. So, you know, that was a big mistake there by the defense, and luckily it went their way there.
Down to their final strike, the Lady Patriots, as again Wickersham goes upstairs against Piku, who's been a strikeout victim twice today, with a base hit sandwiched in between back in the fourth. 5-2 Mount Carmel, but two in scoring position for the Lady Patriots. But the pressure on Piku, who comes up empty, swing and a miss on the rise ball. She strikes out. Number 14 of the game ends the contest and clinches an outright district title for Mount Carmel. A little bit of controversy late in the ball game. Confusion reigned for a moment, but Wickersham got the job done when she needed to. And the Lady Patriots again trying for a late rally, come up short. The final 5-2 here at the lower school at John Curtis. As a result, congratulations to Mount Carmel, the District 9 5A champions all by themselves. They sweep through the league 6-0 and improve to 12-2 on the year and win their 10th straight game overall. Curtis falls to 12-6. They finish 4-2 in the district and have a 2-game win streak snapped. We'll wrap it up here from Curtis and River Ridge in a moment. Again, the final, Mount Carmel 5, John Curtis 2, and what was a good one. This is SportsNola.com Prep Softball, presented by First NBC Bank. here in the press box. I guess we're appreciating each other as much as we appreciated what it was a really good softball game this afternoon as Mount Carmel locks up sole possession of the district title in 9-5A with a 5-2 victory over John Curtis. The Cubs finishing with 5 runs on 9 hits and 1 error. They left 7 on base. And Curtis with 2 runs on 7 hits and 1 error. And lots to lament as Katie Morse joins yours truly, Jude Young, to wrap things up. 9 left on base for the Lady Patriots against an excellent pitcher like junior Shelby Wickersham. They had their chances, including in the late going. A bit of a controversial play call late, but Wickersham, when she needed to, came up with the big strikeout to end things. And you can't do much better than what she was able to do with 14 strikeouts. That gets you out of a lot of jams, and it certainly did today.
Yeah, that covers a lot of sins. When you strike out essentially, two batters each inning, you've done more than your job. And if you're John Curtis, you're kind of shaking your head at a lot of missed opportunities, as you said, leaving 9 runners on base, especially going up against a pitcher like that. You're just seeing one after the other of missed opportunities running by in your mind. But to their credit, they did play very well in the short game. They forced Mount Carmel to make errors when they needed it to happen. They had a very timely home run by Alyssa Dean. So to their credit, they did play very well and hit very well against a very seasoned team and a very good pitcher. Now, Mount Carmel did seem to string together their hits more effectively. They hit the ball to the opposite field, hitting the balls where they were pitched. And like we mentioned over and over again, Shelby Wickersham, doing her job. There's no secret as to why she's committed to go play at LSU. Excellent pitcher, and she really showed her variety of pitches that she has in her repertoire. But nonetheless, an excellent game. There was some drama. There was some highs and some lows. It was a roller coaster. I laughed, I cried. It was great.
I didn't see any tears here, but we did have a few laughs, and we were entertained, and we hope you were too. Some heroes in the contest. Cam Goodman wound up having 2 hits and an RBI, and Alyssa Dean had a solo home run, those accounting for the 2 runs for the Lady Patriots. And on the flip side, we mentioned Wickersham with the complete game, just like Rennie Hebert on the flip side for the Lady Patriots, but Wickersham with the 14 strikeouts and another victory on the season, 2 against Curtis in district play. And even though this is an experienced Cubs team, 4 seniors included, it was a sophomore stepping up big. Maddie Savarese, the 8-hole hitter, able to come up with 3 base hits, 3 for 3, with 2 runs driven in. She had an outstanding game. And another top performer, this is a senior stepping up, and a team full of Madisons, Maddie Ciascio with a pair of hits, including a triple and a run driven in. Mount Carmel has plenty of weapons and a great pitcher. You have to like their chances moving forward the rest of the way to rack up some more wins. They've now won 10 in a row. They clearly a threat to win it all in Division I, if not the favorite in the postseason. But John Curtis, now seeing the Cubs 2 times, could easily face them in the 8-team bracket over in Sulphur. Lady Patriots had to have gained some confidence from today, believing that they can play with the more experienced Mount Carmel club.
Oh, absolutely, especially if you are going to go into the playoffs with a chance of playing a team you've already played twice and come close to beating a couple of times. So that's definitely an advantage for John Curtis going into this playoff bracket that maybe not everybody is in love with, but that is one advantage of it. You're going to play a team that you're familiar with and you can possibly effectively scout against. Now on the flip side, if there's ever a time to start heating up, Mount Carmel's picked a great time. Shelby's doing a great job really coming into her own on the mound. 14 strikeouts is just phenomenal. And sometimes the scoreboard doesn't reflect that with those 2 runs. You would think there'd be a goose egg up there on the board, and everybody hit. Everybody kind of did their job, and you see them celebrating over there, a big W. Is that a Cubs flag?
That is, they fly the W because they're the Cubs. They're jumping on that bandwagon, and that's a great little motivator for them moving forward as they take pictures with it and enjoy their district title. 2 really good teams. Wouldn't surprise you if either one of them came home from softball with a state championship, would it?
No, not at all. This game was, really entertaining and really fun, and like we mentioned, I would love to see a pitcher's duel sometimes, but we didn't really see that that today. Some 14 strikeouts don't really reflect that. But anytime you see two teams that can keep up with each other effectively and kind of tit for tat the whole time, these teams both have runs and sulfur ahead of them, and we'll be really excited to see it play out.
A couple weeks to go. The tournament for both this weekend. Your shot for the postseason. Thanks to Katie for outstanding coverage of this game. Jude on thanking Chip kind of and Nat the hammer in particular for their work in this one on River Ridge Carmel. Wraps up District 9-5 victory over John Curtis. Lee Van Gelder as well for putting this broadcast together. Great to bring you quality softball from the metro area. We say good night. This was a presentation of Prep Softball on SportsNola.com, brought to you by First NBC Bank.